want to make sure that I acknowledge the sponsor of the show, Tiege Hanley, because Tiege Hanley sent me this new pack. They sent me the new Tiege pack, so I just literally pulled the paper out, got it out of the mail, and I started going through it, and I got a little bit more excited than I should. You know what I'm saying? So they did send me the Tiege pack, and I don't even know what this is yet. So I'm assuming this is what you get when you first order your Tiege, and I don't know what this is. Oh, this is dope. This is absolutely dope. Is this a nail kit? Ladies, get this for the fellas. Fellas, don't wait for the ladies to get it for you. This is free. This just comes with it. 30% off your first order plus 20% off for life. Literally. Oh, snaps. I didn't know that they were sending it like this. Real talk. So this is the nail kit that they sending you. All right. So now you ain't looking like a dusty. This is a free gift straight from Tiege for the people that ordered the Tiege. They got the small one for the little hands like mine's. They got the big joints for your toenails. And then they got the joints at the bottom too. You know what I'm saying? For y'all that's a little bit more crustier than usual. All right. So that's one of the free gifts that Tiege got inside of the pack. And then what is this? Says squeeze a quarter size amount of Tiege Hanley body wash on the center of the wet bristles. Lather, scrub, rinse, and repeat for the perfectly satisfying wash every time. So that's inside of there also, right? Ooh, I can get my rubber ducky on right here. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Tiege for sending me that uncomplicated skincare for men. And then what we got in here? We got the actual Tiege pack, right? So this is the normal Tiege pack, but then they gave me the supersized joint for the people. They wanted me to show the people exactly what they got when they ordered that first Tiege pack, when you're getting your 30% off your first order, and then you get your free gifts. You get 2 free gifts, and then the 20% off for life. So the 20% off for life is a new thing. And dang, I ain't even got my keys on me to open this up. Maybe I can use the little nail clipper thing. I ain't got to buy no nail clipper for my new joint downtown. And then you get all of the washes, all of the scrubs, all of the AM, the PMs, and all of that stuff. So you got the whole thing inside of there for you to make sure you take care of yourself. But you got to make sure you take care of it every day, right? We don't want to miss days. We don't want to be looking like dusties. It does not absolve you from being able to make sure that you brush your teeth. Brush your teeth. It don't fix the teeth problem. Don't fix you ironing your clothes. Don't fix you being able to take care of your business. But it absolutely makes sure that your skin is phenomenal, even when you're going between shaves. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Tiege Hanley. We absolutely appreciate you. Thank you for continuing to hold us down. I might do an official Tiege commercial, but I like just talking authentically to the people. I like giving the people the authentic look of what it is that you're dealing with, and I want you to hear from me personally. Because anybody can do that little pitch and they can make some little videos, but very few of us can actually speak to the products of exactly what it is that you're supposed to use. So yeah, Tiege Hanley, 30% off your first order and then 20% off for life. That's the Anton Daniels pack, 20% off for life. Using any other Tiege pack, make sure that you go ahead and let that go. And make sure you tap into the link that's in the description and take care of it, all right? What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. I'm coming to you guys live from Miami. Stepped out here for a minute just to take care of a little bit of business, make a couple pickups, and then I'll be back in the city in no time without even blinking. What's up, friends and family? I know we all tapped in from all over the world, mostly here in the United States of America. But shout out to my friends and family that is overseas. Shout out to my people in Canada. Shout out to my people down in Mexico. Shout out to my UK brethren. Shout out to my people over there in Africa. It's a lot of people all over the country. I even got some people tapped in from Japan. So I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for continuing to rock with me. But you know the show must go on no matter where you are inside of the country. I don't have to be in the studio in order to make sure that I'm running it up for you guys. And so we're going to give y'all the same conversations, the same dedication. And we don't miss under any circumstances. We don't miss ever. So, first of all, I just want to give you all a round of applause and say I appreciate y'all. It is Friday, August 23rd, 2024, year of our Lord. And so before I see the super chats, I'm gonna read the super chat shortly. So before we get into this unmitigated disaster of a speech, and I'm going to break it down from you guys or to you guys from a C student's perspective on exactly why you should be concerned. Because the first thing that I did when I woke up this morning was I went and I checked out some of the highlights, some of the main talking points. We're going to go over the whole speech, but I went to go and check out some of the highlights and the main talking points of what she was talking about, because obviously we cover in a Democratic National Convention. And it was bad. It was, look, as an American, okay? No matter who's president, I'm always looking for the silver lining. Even if I criticize the candidate, even if I criticize the president of the United States of America, no matter what, they're still the president of the United States of America. So what they do affect me. So I'm always looking, okay, where's the silver lining? How is it that I got to move? What adjustments do I got to make just in case and all of this stuff? Let me tell you something, bro. As of right now, and I know I'm just still in shock, and we're going to go over it today. I'm still in shock. Honest to God, I'm still in shock. As of right now, I don't know what the solution is if this woman gets into office. Really, and I'm going to break it down for you, is one of two choices at this point. Either you want to thrive and survive, or you want to be a part of a communist party. And a lot of people don't understand what communism is. Communism means that the government owns everything, and that you are just a person that exists. And so we're going to spread it out as the government sees fit. It means essentially that your legislative leaders determine what your life is going to be. Democrats have now become communists. Honest to God. And I'm going to break it down for y'all. For real. I'm seriously gonna break it down for y'all. But make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Also, thank you to Tiege Hanley for continuing to sponsor what we got going on over here. 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. I appreciate you, Tiege Hanley. Ladies, get it for the fellas. Fellas, don't wait for the ladies to get it for you. Also, on top of that, make sure you tap into the Patreon. Because I am here in Miami, I actually put the updated link to the Patreon as far as what Stock Club is. So if you want to rock out with Stock Club, the next Stock Club, then make sure you go into the Patreon. It is there for everyone to see. That is a part of the Bag Chasers. It is in the Patreon. The link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. All right. So I updated that while I was on a plane flying here yesterday so that you guys can get all of the information that you need, because you know that we don't miss. You know we got to take care of business. You know we got to get into it. Thank you, Trading with Cash says you love my work. I appreciate you. All right, so those two things. And then anything else? Let me go ahead and read the super chats. You said I'm speaking to a bunch of sheep, Scooby and Daphne. We gonna get into it. Hopefully, I can wake a couple people up. Yakima James says, "I got that 20 ball." Thank you, Yakima James. I appreciate you for holding me down. J Dub says, "Good morning. I believe Vivek Ramaswamy is the future of the Republican Party. Blessings to you and your family." I'm gonna review him also. He is a part of the show. So let me break down to y'all how the show is gonna go today. And thank you for the 20 ball. I appreciate you also. Before I read any more super chats and cash apps, let me tell y'all what the show is gonna be today. So the show, we gonna get into quick hits, all right, and then we gonna go straight into Kamala's speech. We're gonna dive right into it. Then after we get into Kamala's speech, we're gonna go into Trump's reaction to Kamala's speech. We're gonna go what Trump did yesterday as far as him visiting the border and him getting threats on his life at the border. We're gonna go into Vivek Ramaswamy. He started to get into a little bit of a skerfuffle, right? He was debating with communists and protesters at the DNC. We're gonna get into that, and then I'm gonna give you my final thoughts on how it all breaks down. I'm gonna summarize it all into one ball from a C student's perspective so that you guys can truly understand what we talking about and what we dealing with. All right, this is the greatest morning show on earth. Make sure you send this to your family and friends. If you haven't already, make sure you hit a like for the algorithm on the way in the door. It costs you nothing to do so. And send this to 3 or 4 people that you think would enjoy or even would disagree with me, because we need to have uncomfortable conversations. As usual, moderators, moderate with a long leash. As long as it's nothing overly disrespectful, Let the people say what they want to say inside of the chat because I do not believe in censorship. I think that regardless of whether you agree with me or you disagree with me, your voice should be heard. And so chat lives matters over here. On any platform that we rock out with, chat lives matters. And then we got after hours tonight. Let me read some more of these super chats. Jeweled Alchemy Soap Company LLC says, Happy Friday, Anton. Don't go fumbling on a Friday, y'all. Shout out to Jeweled Alchemy Soap Company. I appreciate you. Gary says, hold on, let me get Gary up here. Gary says, Anton can't be trusted. He's a Lions fan. Go Bears. We're going to see how that play out this year. Schedules is out. King Stennis is in the building. Thank you to King Stennis for holding me down. I appreciate you, my friend. And then I also want to acknowledge some of the cash apps, the people that support the platform. So Mike That Dude, as usual, I always want to give a shout out to my guy Mike That Dude. So shout out to Mike That Dude. And ESDC, thank you ESDC for always holding me down. I appreciate you also. And thank you to everybody that support the platform, everybody that hold us down. Shout out to the chat, man. Shout out to you guys that show up day in and day out. Always looking out, always holding me down. I want to say Anthony, shout out to Anthony. Anthony says, just started watching you, so much game, bro. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate you also. I got a rich friend in Aubrey. Aubrey Dudley says, keep up the good work, fam. Thank you, Rick Aubrey. I appreciate you on that front. I also want to give acknowledgement for Aaron. Says Taz Deacon Daniel. Shout out to Aaron. I appreciate you. And thank you to everybody again that continues to support the platform. I don't ask for it, but I always like to acknowledge each and every person. I don't care if you give $1. You are going to be acknowledged because I am never going to get too big. I am never going to be one of them Hollywood people. I'm always going to support and acknowledge the people that support and acknowledge me. All right. So thank you for tuning into the Millionaire Morning Show. I am 100% independent, owned by nobody. So my thoughts are my own, and you're going to get it unfiltered, but I'm still going to break it down to a C student's perspective. And I'm always going to hopefully entertain you, but hopefully we can get some medicine in the candy. All right. So without further ado, we got to go ahead and get into the show. So let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. What is the thing that we do first? Quick hits. All right. Quick hits, y'all. Quick hits is a segment of the show that we don't necessarily think that we have to break each individual segment down into its own, but we definitely want to keep y'all in the loop of what's going on. So let's get to it, y'all. First things first, on Quick Hits, a rideshare driver was kidnapped and made to drive to Florida. Check it out.
Federal prosecutors say a man kidnapped a rideshare driver at gunpoint and forced him to drive from Arlington to Miami, Florida. Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Hayes.
And I'm Blake Hansen. It is 9 o'clock. 23-year-old Miguel Hernandez is now in federal custody. Investigators say the driver finally got away after Hernandez made him stop at a dollar store outside Miami. The driver hid in a bathroom until authorities arrived. Fox News' David Santandri went over the criminal complaint, joins us now with the story. David.
Well, the kidnapped rideshare driver was allegedly held at gunpoint and forced to drive over 1,300 miles over the course of several days. Rideshare drivers obviously never really know the mindset of the people they're giving rides to.
You can see people jumping up and saying, oh, yeah.
Alan Roberson says passengers are always excited to catch a lift in his rideshare karaoke van.
They all can grab a mic and sing to their heart's content.
Roberson records rides and will even live stream for passengers having a good time.
I mean, there are, I think, a total of maybe 13 cameras in and around the van.
But those cameras are also for his own safety.
You never know what anybody is going through before they get into your vehicle. You both are trapped in your vehicle at that point. Either they're trapped with you or you're trapped with them.
This past weekend, 23-year-old Miguel Pastron Hernandez allegedly kidnapped a rideshare driver in Arlington, forcing the driver at gunpoint to drive him to South Florida, according to federal prosecutors. Court documents say 3 days into the kidnapping, Pastron forced the driver to stop at a Dollar General near Miami so he could buy supplies for a second kidnapping.
What world are we living in? Just curious. What world are we living in where the kidnapper tell you to, okay, first of all, a kidnapper is going to stop at the dollar store. You get your supplies from the dollar store in order to go and kidnap somebody else? The kidnapper, instead of hitchhiking or catching a Greyhound, because you could literally hitchhike to Florida. Instead of hitchhiking and he get his supplies from the dollar store. Only thing the dollar store is good for in my eyes is balloons. The only thing the dollar store is good for in my eyes is balloons. And the dude had him driving for days.
Strawn was allegedly planning to hold the second victim for a $3 million ransom. The rideshare driver, however, hid inside the dollar store's bathroom. Pastron ran away, but was caught by police. The kidnapped rideshare driver appears to be okay.
Yo, be careful out in these streets, bro. Look, and this is why a lot of times I say that women should not be doing men's jobs. Although I know that women have now evolved to where they feel as though they should be doing men's jobs. It's really not safe out here for anybody, but it's truly not safe out here for women. So be very, very careful in these streets. In addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, a man is accused of killing, burning, and burying his wife. Check it out.
Fayette County Sheriff's investigators are currently in Louisiana interrogating a man accused of killing his wife at their Fayetteville home.
Investigators say they found his wife's body partially burned and buried in a shallow grave. Fox 5's Eric Mock joins us from the Fayette County Sheriff's Office with details about this gruesome crime.
Fayette County Sheriff Barry Babb says in his almost 40 years of law enforcement experience, this is one of the more grisly crimes he's had to work. But thanks to quick work and coordination with other agencies, they were able to catch this suspect, even though he'd fled all the way to Louisiana.
It's shocking as hell. Definitely seemed like something that would be on like on one of those shows. I didn't expect that.
Jabril Muhammad says he would have never expected his neighbor, 39-year-old Kenneth Harden Jr., to be accused of something like this.
He seemed like a cool dude. Like I said, he had a fireworks show down here for the kids before the 4th of July.
Fayette County Sheriff Barry Babb says Harden shot and killed his wife, 39-year-old Carrie Harden, early Tuesday morning while his children slept.
So they went to school on Tuesday, never seen their mother.
The sheriff's office says it learned of the crime after Harden flew his father into town and gave him his last will and testament.
He had told his father that he had shot his wife and pretty much that he was now going to be on the run.
Harden's father called the sheriff's office, who began investigating. Babb says a license plate reader helped them track Harden's car to a motel in Louisiana. A SWAT team there moved to take him into custody while they searched the large property for his wife's body.
I got almost basically two calls at the same time that the cadaver dog located our victim, which was buried in a very shallow grave on the back part of the property, and at the same time that the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office took him into custody without incident.
Sheriff Babb says the body was partially burned. He says Fayette County investigators got on the first flight to Louisiana Thursday morning, where they've apparently had no trouble interviewing Harden.
He is completely cooperating to the point that I will tell you that Captain Lee, who has been an investigator at least 3 decades, said I've never had a homicide suspect want to tell us everything.
Sheriff Babb says so far the motive they've gathered from Harden was a late-night domestic dispute mixed with heavy drinking. Well, Sheriff Babb is also just breathing a huge sigh of relief because investigators have learned that Harden was, considering committing suicide by cop, and he was heavily armed. And of course, they're concerned after the recent shootings of law enforcement in both Paulding and Carroll County. But thankfully, Harden chose not to go through with that.
Heavy drinking, domestic dispute, which then led to the killing, burning, and the burying of his wife that was also on a phenomenal property. So if you look at the house and you look at where it was that they wound up finding the woman and what the backyard is and all of this stuff, it looked like it was a beautiful property. And then the dude went on the run. He flew his father in. So it's not like it seemed like he was dusty. I mean, I know what they showing on the profile picture, but it's not like he was a dusty. So the dude flew his father in, told his father that he killed his wife, that he buried her and burned her. They found her on the property, and then ultimately he went on the run and he was considering doing suicide. All honest to God, and I don't know how long they've been married. I don't know what the details are, but honestly, I'm trying to figure out what is it that somebody can do, or what is it that they saying, or what is it that they say to you that you get to the point to where you ultimately want to kill, burn, and bury them. Kill, burn, and bury them. I hope I never get to the point in my life, and I'm not even talking about with anybody that's close to me, but just in general, and they got children, in general, that I want to kill, bury, and burn somebody, or kill, burn, and bury somebody. And you saying, why couldn't he just leave? I don't know. We don't know the details of it, but I do want to keep y'all in the loop of what's going on out in these streets. So y'all better be safe out here, because you never know what people have going on behind the scenes. And then last but not least, money that was supposed to be designated for the community, as usual, is being used in order to buy houses and live a lavish lifestyle. And as you can see the Kia out there too.
Now with 3 breaking news in Orange County, federal agents raid the homes of the Viet America Society president and the daughter of a county supervisor accused of embezzling millions in COVID money.
Before we get into this last story, a quick hits, before we get into Kamala Harris's speech and stuff, didn't I tell y'all that one of the things that Biden did during COVID, or during this whole thing, because a lot of people think that they still got away, didn't I tell y'all that eventually they was coming for this, that they extended it to 10 years to be able to chase you down? They not done catching most of y'all. Some of y'all thought that y'all got away. Some of y'all thought that y'all got away. They are not done coming to find you. If you are one of those people, because you can go and look it up and see who took the COVID money. You can go see who took the COVID. If you one of the people that ultimately took the money, that took the cash, they are not done with you. They still finding people, and they tracking them down, and they throwing them under the jail. Let me go ahead and play this story.
Good afternoon, I'm Glenn Walker.
And I'm Lou Parker. The homes searched today were allegedly purchased with money that was meant to feed elderly people struggling from COVID.
KTLA 5's Orange County Bureau Chief Chip Yost is live now in Tustin with the latest. Chip?
Yeah, hello there, Glenn and Lou. Yes, this raid appears to be connected with some allegations we've been hearing about involving the daughter of an Orange County supervisor. We've been seeing federal agents going in and out of this home behind me, this yellow home. Let's show you some video from a little bit earlier. According to a lawsuit filed by the county, this home was owned or was purchased by Rhiannon Doe, the daughter of Orange County Supervisor Andrew Doe. She has been accused in a lawsuit along with the group she was working for.
Well, at least she decided to invest her funds, right? She said, we ain't gonna waste it. We're gonna be bag chasers. We're gonna invest in real estate.
Viet America Society of embezzling money that was meant to be used to feed needy people during the COVID pandemic. They said that their group took those funds instead and used those funds for personal gain, including purchasing this house and making other purchases. If we could, let's take a look at a page from the lawsuit against the Viet America Society and others. It says, in part, instead of using these funds to assist the county's most vulnerable populations, defendant Viet America Society and its officers and associates brazenly plundered these funds for their own personal gain. We talked a little bit earlier.
That's, honestly, that's just wild to me. Like, of all of the people, more than I despise just like regular everyday criminals or people that just do dumb stuff or whatever, I dislike, and I'm gonna read the super chat shortly, I dislike thieves more than probably anybody else. I mean, listen, you could be a single baby mama, you could be out here busting it down for a real one, you can go and slap somebody in their face, but don't slap nobody in their face. You shouldn't put your hands on people, because that's gonna end up in a bad way. But my point is that there's very few things in my mind that is lower than a thief, especially somebody that's still from the most vulnerable. Like when I see people finessing older people, or I see people finessing for real estate, or they go and steal money from this person, that is money that people actually made or gained or paid in taxes, or is allocating towards something in particular. There used to be a special place and a special way you used to have to deal with a thief. Honestly, you had to pay with a finger. You had to do something. Thieves used to have to pay the piper. And y'all just be stealing like it ain't even no thing.
Earlier to Orange County Supervisor Katrina Foley, who's been among those calling for a criminal investigation into this matter.
As far as just when you started hearing about this, what's your personal reaction to these funds, if the allegations are true, being used for personal gain instead of what they were supposed to be used for?
My personal reaction is that it's disgusting. It's just reprehensible that people could take advantage for their own personal enrichment, and especially given that these funds, as you may recall, were for people who were really struggling during the middle of the COVID pandemic.
Listen, God bless y'all, but they still coming for y'all. And so the one thing that the Biden administration did promise y'all, which that's probably one of the very few things that I agree with him. He said, we're going to extend the ability for us to come and take you down by a long time so that you can make sure, listen, enjoy your freedom now. Enjoy your freedom now because we're going to come and see you. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your quick hits. Let me go ahead and get into the thick of things, man. I want to just get into the show. I don't even want to waste no time. I want to get straight into the show. Let me read some of the super chats and the cash apps, and then we're going to go out. Shout out to Latoya Forbes for the birthday, man. Shout out to you. Hold on. Let me make sure I get this right. You 39 today? Latoya, hey, can I get everybody in there? Latoya Forbes. Everybody in the chat wish Latoya Forbes a happy birthday, please, for me. Everybody in the chat, throw up some birthday. 39. Yo, you made it. You right over the hump. Now you can start debating with a bunch of liberals about how it is that you shouldn't vote for Trump no more. And shout out to Bobby Sherry, says a little something for the collection plate. Shout out to you, Bobby Sherry. I appreciate you. Thank you for always holding us down, and thank you to everybody that support the platform. Let me read a couple of the super chats, and then we're going to go ahead and get into Kamala Harris's DNC speech. Jason Holmes says, hello from South Korea, fam. It seems both candidates in the media are focusing solely on domestic, so impacts us. Here's the thing, Jason. We still trying to get people up to just understanding financial literacy 101. Most people ain't even paying attention to any of the policies whatsoever. They voting based off of identity politics. Look, before we can even get people to start focusing on international economics, we got to get them up to the starting line to even start having a conversation about economics, let alone economic policies to begin with. We got a lot of work ahead of us. Most people that they're galvanizing and getting to the polls, they have no clue on economics whatsoever. Thank you. I appreciate you, Jason. You are absolutely right, though. Shout out to Jacquin's Mind. Says, I respect you, Anton. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you also. Reg Daniel says, new bag chaser. Let me give it a round of applause for all of the new bag chasers. In my third year of painting contract, looking forward to great advice. All right, bet, Reg. Bet. Hey, we got Stock Club coming up, so make sure y'all tap in and y'all tap into the Patreon to see when that is. King Senate says, so where's her funeral being held? I don't know. Frederico says, good morning, Reverend Dr. Anton Ebenezer Daniels and the Jesus Chasers. Shout out to Frederico. My dog, Faye TV, says, planning my finances just in case Kamala Harris wins. That's a fact. We about to get into that. I have a friend who is a financial advisor telling me if she wins, 401ks and Roths will become obsolete due to unrealized. It's true. He's 100% correct. But again, we're going to get into that. Cap gains tax. Should I cancel my 401k and IRAs? We'll talk about it. Shout out to you. And then my girl Fantasy Islands in the building says stealing from elderly and the hungry to buy homes is absolutely disgusting. I agree 100%. How about we go ahead and get straight into this speech, y'all? So I want to get into this speech. So Kamala Harris, y'all. Kamala Harris. Let's get into the speech. I'm gonna speed it up at 1.25 so that we can get through all of it. And then I'm gonna break it down to y'all from a C student's perspective. And again, chat, make sure that y'all have a long leash. Moderators, anybody that disagrees with us is fine. It doesn't matter if they agree or disagree as long as they're not overly disrespectful. We rocking. I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Let's get into it, y'all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, let's get to business. All right. by thanking my most incredible husband, Doug, an incredible father to Cole and Ella, and happy anniversary, Dougie. I love you so very much.
We already laughed at Doug's corniness yesterday about, his whole testament of how I met my wife and how I love my life. And I was leaving her voicemails and saying, teach me how to Dougie. Teach me, Doc. We already did that. We're not going to do that. We getting straight to business today, y'all.
To our President Joe Biden. Together, Joe, I am filled with gratitude. Your record is extraordinary, as history will show, and your character is inspiring. And Doug and I love you and Jill and are forever thankful to you both.
Now, word on the street is that Joe Biden only flew in to give his little recommended speech that he had to do, because if he didn't do it, then it would look funny. And so that was the word on the street, that he flew in on Monday and he flew back out on Monday right after the speech. So they say that Joe Biden is actually bitter about how they forced him out. But neither here nor there. He didn't know that the person that he brought in for diversity, equity, and inclusion in order to win the black vote, let alone the black woman vote, was ultimately going to be the person that pushed him out. The very same person sometimes that you bring into your home that you think is going to be the person that helps you get over the hump, your helpmeet, could be the very end of you. It could be your demise. Let me say that again for the people in the back. The word out there, I can't substantiate this, but there are rumors that are resonating out there that's saying that Joe Biden is pissed about getting pushed out, and the very person that he brought in order to win the black vote is the very person that pushed them out.
And to Coach Tim Walz, put your faith in our campaign.
Some of all these crying
Your
men.
support is humbling. So, America, the path that led me here in recent weeks was no doubt unexpected. But I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys. So, our mother, Kamala Harris, had one of her own. And I miss her every day, and especially right now. And I know she's looking down smiling. The world alone, traveling from India to California with an unshakable dream to be the scientist who would cure breast cancer. When she finished school, she was supposed to return home to a traditional arranged marriage. But as fate would have it, she met my father, Donald Harris, a student from Jamaica. They fell in love and got married, and that act of self-determination made my sister Maya and me.
So her father is officially, according to her words, from Jamaica. Her mother is from, India? All right, we here.
Growing up, we moved a lot. I will always remember that big Mayflower truck packed with all our belongings, ready to go to Illinois, to Wisconsin, and wherever our parents' jobs took us. My early memories of our parents together are very joyful ones. A home filled with laughter and music, Aretha, Coltrane, and Miles. At the park, my mother would say, "Stay close." But my father would say, as he smiled, "Run, Kamala, run. Don't be afraid. Don't let anything stop you."
I'm going to do minimal stopping until we get to the part that's really going to be impactful. I'm going to just play it straight out, and then we're going to get to the parts that we need to talk about.
Earliest years, he taught me to be fearless. But the harmony between my parents did not last. When I was in elementary school, they split up. And it was mostly my mother who raised us. Before she could finally afford to buy a home, she rented a small apartment in the East Bay. In the Bay, you either live in the hills or the flatlands. We lived in the flats. A beautiful working-class neighborhood of firefighters, nurses, and construction workers.
What did I tell y'all? Yep, this is at 1.25. What did I tell y'all that every single politician does? They all give you this endearing story to help you realize that they're one of you. And so because they're one of you, they have your best interests at heart. Conversely, I know that there's a lot of people that grew up in my neighborhood that was absolute demons and monsters. And if you had ever given them power or money, they would destroy the world. So every single politician has the same pitch for you guys. We're one of you. I can identify with what you're going through. I grew up in the flats. I was this, I was that. It's the politician playbook 101 is to tell a story. Her husband Doug did it yesterday. They all have done it. Barack did it. Michelle did it. They all do it for every single speech. They do it on the Republican side and they do it on the Democrat side. But every single speaker that I've reviewed has all given you the same pitch every single time. Every time. I'm one of you before they start to release whatever it is that they say that they want to do. So let's get to it, y'all.
All who tended their lawns with pride. My mother, she worked long hours. And like many working parents, she leaned on a trusted circle to help raise us. Mrs. Shelton, who ran the daycare below us and became a second mother. Uncle Sherman,
I'm one
Aunt
of you.
Mary, Uncle Freddie, Auntie Chris. None of them family by blood, and all of them family by love. How to play chess, and sometimes even let us win. Family who loved us, believed in us, and told us we could be anything.
You can be anything you want to do.
Community, faith, and the importance of treating others as you would want to be treated, with kindness, respect, and compassion. My mother was a brilliant, 5-foot-tall, brown woman with an accent.
And it's specific why they say brown woman. She's not going to say Indian, whatever, so on and so forth. Brown woman with an accent. Listen, man. This stuff is all strategic. This is not by happenstance. They didn't just not use a thesaurus, so they did not use and go and find out the synonym for this word. She did not say she was an Indian woman. She was a brown, meaning woman of color with an accent. I got to break this down from a C student's perspective for y'all so that y'all truly understand how they're programming you to think and identify with them so that you'll ultimately vote the way that they want you to vote. She was a 5-foot-tall, brown woman with an accent. That is literally how she's describing it. Remember that.
As the eldest child, I saw how the world would sometimes treat her. But my mother never lost her cool. She was tough, courageous, a trailblazer in the fight for women's health. And she taught Maya and me a lesson that Michelle mentioned the other night. She taught us to never complain about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it. That was my mother. And she taught us, and she also taught us, and never do anything half-assed. And that is a direct quote. A direct quote. I grew up immersed in the ideals of the civil rights movement. My parents had met at a civil rights gathering, and they made sure that we learned about civil rights leaders, including the lawyers like Thurgood Marshall and...
Oh my God. Jesus, Lord, have mercy. This is so sickening. This is so sickening. And they made sure they taught us and sat us down to learn about all of the civil rights leaders, including the lawyers, which is probably going to. And remember, I haven't heard his speech. I've only seen a little clip and a highlight. It probably inspired her to be a lawyer and also want to be a part of the justice system because I'm such a good person.
Constance Baker Motley, those who battled in the courtroom to make real the promise of America. So at a young age, I decided I wanted to do that work. I wanted to be a lawyer. And when it came time to choose the type of law I would pursue, I reflected on a pivotal moment in my life. You see, when I was in high school, I started to notice something about my best friend, Wanda. She was sad.
Now we're gonna get into my best friend was abused, and so we had to take her in, and so that inspired me to really want to get into the justice system and change things because I want to fight for the lesser thans. Where have we heard this speech before? We heard this at all of the rallies.
At school, and there were times she didn't want to go home. So one day I asked if everything was all right, and she confided in me that she was being sexually abused by her stepfather. And I immediately told her she had to come stay with us, and she did. This is one of the reasons
I know, Lames.
I became a prosecutor, to protect people like Wanda, because I believe everyone has a right to safety, to dignity, and to justice. As a prosecutor, when I had a case, I charged it not in the name of the victim, but in the name of the people. For a simple reason. In our system of justice, a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us.
Wonder where we heard that speech before.
And I would often explain this to console survivors of crime, to remind them no one should be made to fight alone. We are all in this together. And every day in the courtroom, I stood proudly before a judge and I said 5 words: Kamala Harris for the people. And to be clear, my entire career, I've only had one client, the people.
Translation, I've never actually worked for any private organization, and I don't understand how anything works because I've always been paid by the taxpayers. That's what that means, okay?
And so, on behalf of the people, on behalf of every American, regardless of party, race, gender, or the language your grandmother speaks, on behalf of my mother and everyone who has ever set out on their own unlikely journey, on behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another, on behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Do y'all realize that literally in 2019, and just 6 months ago, she had the lowest rating for any vice president in our lifetime? As we go through this speech, I just want to show y'all how easy it is. And this is why I'm such a fan of people that reinvent themselves. In 1 year, and I say this all the time, you can turn your whole life around and be a completely different person. If Kamala Harris can do it in less than 6 months, to go from in 2019 getting absolutely destroyed by Tulsi Gabbard to not even being or getting any votes or nominations to be president of the United States of America, to being handpicked in order to win the black vote, a diversity, equity, and inclusion pick, to now being nominated after pushing the very person that handpicked her up and pulled her up and pushing him out, and not even having to go through a primary, to then winning the nomination, her accepting your nomination for possible president of the United States of America, is astounding. That is amazing. And this is why I believe there's no way that you'll ever be able to convince me that you cannot reinvent yourself. I don't care if you was a monster. You could have been the monster of monsters. Listen, Diddy coming back. I believe in Diddy. I believe in Diddy. There's no way you cannot tell me after the rebrand and after leaving the borders open, and people's memories are so short. They have literally come in and reinvented, taken over neighborhoods, apartment buildings, and the cities, the sanctuary cities that they invaded, the blue cities, they still gonna vote blue. Because our memories are so short. And I don't know if everybody was just in room 9 and they let them all out, but the memories are so short that you cannot tell me that nobody, and I mean nobody on this earth, cannot reinvent themselves to be whatever it is that they want to be seen as in the eyes of the American people. If she could do it right now and push out Biden, You can do it. You can reinvent yourself and become whatever you want to become. You want to be a mermaid? You could be a mermaid. Don't worry about it. Next year, you can wind up being a council member. You can become a senator. You can become a congressperson. You can ultimately even become president of the United States of America. There is no limits. Even though you used to be a mermaid, even though maybe you were a merman. Maybe you used to date Cassie. I don't know. What I do know is that no matter what, in any way, shape, or form, you can reinvent yourself. My money is on Diddy. Take that, take that.
Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Not as members of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power. Be a president who unites us around our highest aspirations, a president who leads and listens, who is realistic, practical, and has common sense, and always fights for the American people. From the courthouse to the White House, that has been my life's work. As a young courtroom prosecutor in Oakland, California.
We know what I took on the big banks. I took on the pharmaceutical companies. Honest to God, I have not seen the speech. I have no clue what she's going to say. I just paused it because I want to have predictive learning. I am an AI bot when it comes to listening to Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. Man, listen, I'm willing to bet this $45,000 rose gold presidential Rolex that she's probably going to say I either took on the big banks or the pharmaceutical companies. Maybe I shouldn't bet it. Maybe she'll say something different. I don't know. I have no clue what's going to happen right now. Let's see if I would have lost my watch.
I stood up for women and children against predators who abuse them.
Okay, so I was wrong.
As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks.
I was right. Oh my God. Give me my watch back. Give me my watch back. Give me my watch back. You're not going to take my watch. Give me my watch back. Give me my mother effing watch back. I was right. 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 Yes, I was. Yes, I was. Give me my watch back. I was right.
Delivered $20 billion from middle-class families who faced foreclosure and helped pass a homeowner bill of rights, one of the first of its kind in the nation. I stood up for veterans and students being scammed by big for-profit colleges, for workers who are being cheated out of their wages, the wages they were due.
I heard all of this before.
Those who traffic in guns and of our communities. And I will tell you, these fights were not easy, and neither were the elections that put me in those offices. We were underestimated.
Somebody said I watched. How did I watch? I was on after hours till almost 2 a.m, and then I had to go to sleep, wake up, record a video, prep for this. Listen, ain't nobody had time to pre-watch this, and when I could react to it in real time. Don't feel some type of way about it. Give me your watch. I want your watch. You better watch against me. Give me your watch.
At practically every turn, but we never gave up. because the future is always worth fighting for. And that's the fight we are in right now, a fight for America's future. Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways,
we getting there, y'all. We getting there.
Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol.
The amount of lying in this is egregious. The amount of lying in this is egregious. He sent an armed mob to the Capitol. How can presidential candidates get away with this? So they just gonna say that and then y'all just gonna let that fly? Y'all acting like y'all wasn't prospering and winning and bagging it up and running it up? I retired in 2019 after Donald Trump's presidency. I retired. I was able to retire after Trump's presidency. They just gonna sit here and lie to y'all and say he sent a bunch of people. Come on, fam. Come on, man. Come on, dog. Come on, man. Come on, we gonna endure through it. We gotta get through this, y'all.
Where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans and separately found liable for committing sexual abuse. And consider what he...
Is anybody ever gonna ask her? Because it's been literally over a year now since we've discovered this. Is anybody, any reporter, anybody close to her, is anybody ever gonna have the question and ask the pertinent questions? My number one question to her is, why was Andre Dickens and Fani Willis listed as going to visit the White House, specifically the vice president, the Fulton County District Attorney, and the mayor of Atlanta, and then they flew back to Atlanta and filed 91 charges against Trump in order to influence the election? Is anybody ever going to answer that question? Is anybody ever going to have a conversation? Not one person is ever going to answer that question. Are we ever going to get that answer to that question? Does anybody have the balls to ask her, any reporter in the world, if you ever sit with Kamala Harris, if she ever do an interview with you, will you ever in your life ask her the question and say, how is it that you guys manufactured this thing? And why does it show that they unceremoniously, unscripted, go and visited you? Because the security logs have to be, that's public information that was basically disclosed during Fani Willis's trial, during her questioning. Is anybody ever going to ask that question, or are we just going, that's just gone? Nobody.
Tends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent to deploy our...
See how they have to use certain words and they say intent, his intent to? Because all of this is lies, and he never did it, and he's never done any of this stuff. He was in office for 4 years. I know he freed Kodak Black. He freed Kwame Kilpatrick. He freed a lot of people, Kwame sat on my couch in my studio and said, listen, man, they don't have no ties to me whatsoever. They ain't never asked me for nothing. They ain't asked me for an endorsement. They ain't asked me to stunt for him. He just had mercy on me. And when black people were calling for my head, he said, listen, unexpectedly got a phone call, and he said, listen, you can go home tomorrow. Regardless of what y'all think he did, regardless of his crimes, regardless of what happened, Lil Wayne, you see they ain't got Kamala Harris and them ain't going over and talking to Lil Wayne about using his music. They went and talked to Beyonce. More black people was getting out of jail than ever before. But his intent.
Active duty military against our own citizens. Consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States. Not
Bro, he already had
your
them. He already had the powers. What are you talking about?
life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. Like it's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors, and its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back.
And isn't it interesting that, again, Democrats have controlled the presidency for the last 12 of 16 years. 12 of the last 16 years has been all in the control of and even when Trump was in office, he still couldn't get anything done because he had to fight with all of these other legislative branches, including Congress. So essentially, Democrats have been in power for some of you guys' entire adult life. For some of you guys' entire adult life, they've been in power, and you tell me how that's worked out for you outside of the years that Trump was in office.
We are not going back to when Donald Trump tried to cut.
And that man right there.
We are not going back.
First of all, you got the worst. Hold on, let me show y'all who's who. Worst governor in America. Worst governor in America. Anybody in California, you know I'm telling the truth. Worst governor in America.
We are not going back.
He looked like he got a lisp. I know a lisp when I see it. That man talked with a lisp. Whoever this person is right here, he talks with a lisp. And the one thing I know about people that talk with a lisp, not all, but let me just stay away. Let's get through this speech, y'all.
To when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools. We are not going to let him end programs like Head Start that provide preschool and childcare for our children. America, we are not going back. We are forward to a future.
I want to get to her policies. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Strong and growing middle class, because we know a strong middle class has always been critical to America's success. And building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. Class is where I come from. My mother kept a strict budget.
Told you. Wanted to identify with you. Now they're going to start having conversations with you.
We lived within our means, yet we wanted for little. And she expected us to make the most of the opportunities that were available to us and to be grateful for them. Because, as she taught us, opportunity is not available to everyone. That's why we will create what I call an opportunity economy where everyone has the chance to compete and a chance to succeed.
I was saying there were no policies. We'll get to it. We'll find out.
You live in a rural area, small town, or big city. And as president, I will bring together labor and workers and small business owners and entrepreneurs and American companies to create jobs, to grow our economy, and to lower the cost of everyday needs like health care and housing and groceries. We will provide access to...
Not with that bullshit that she said over there the other day. Because whatever it was that she was talking about the other day, you could go ahead and throw that away. If that was her the four pillars that we talked about, you could throw it away.
Capital for small business owners and entrepreneurs and founders. And we will end America's housing shortage and protect Social Security and Medicare. Now compare that to Donald Trump, because I think everyone here knows he doesn't actually fight for the middle class. He doesn't actually fight for the middle class. Instead, he fights for himself and his billionaire friends.
Same speech.
And he will give them another round of tax breaks that will add up to $5 trillion to the national debt. And all the while, he intends to enact what in effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by almost $4,000 a year. Well, instead of a Trump tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
I want to hear the how. I want to get to the how.
Friends, I believe America cannot...
So there's no how? Just empty talk?
...truly be prosperous unless Americans are fully able to make their own decisions about their own lives, especially on matters of heart and home. But tonight, in America, too many women are not able to make those decisions. And let's be clear about how we got here. Donald Trump handpicked members of the United States Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom. And that...
Again, I want y'all to remember and pay attention to the wording here. Reproductive freedom. Reproductive freedom means you can go and have an abortion. That's what it means. Let me say it again for the people in the back. Planned Parenthood, and I couldn't believe it until I seen it and I did my own research and I started looking at a lot of these different videos and on the ground footage of what was happening at the Democratic National Convention. Planned Parenthood, they got the little things out there, the floaties that do like this. And if the wind keep going that way too much like this, then it start doing like this. And once the wind start picking up on the left, it start doing like this again. They got the Planned Parenthood floaties out there at the Democratic National Convention in mobile vans. Is people outside with bullhorns on saying, listen, come out of the van. It's not too late. They at the Democratic National Convention. This is demonic. This is literally demonic. We are living in demonic times where people are doing some of the worst things and advocating for some of the dumbest stuff that I've ever seen in my entire life. And so when they say reproductive freedom, this is what specifically they're talking about.
Now he brags about it. In his words, quote, I did it and I'm proud to have done it, end quote. Well, I'll tell you, over the past 2 years, I've traveled across our country and women have told me their stories. Husbands and fathers have shared theirs. Stories of women miscarrying in a parking lot, developing sepsis, losing the ability to ever again have children, all because doctors are afraid they may go to jail for caring for their patients. Couples just trying to grow their family, cut off in the middle of IVF treatments. Children who have survived sexual assault, potentially being forced to carry a pregnancy to term.
I hate these people, man. Honest to God, I do. I have not I am developing a level of aggravation that is unprecedented in my lifetime. The Republican Party and Donald Trump specifically, even during the national debate, and how short people's memories are is insane to me, obviously agreed that rape and incest and special circumstances, that is something that nobody disagrees with. I don't know one person that disagrees with it personally, and they've publicly professed it. The only thing that the Republican Party said is, listen, we don't like it, but we also don't believe the federal government should play a role in what happens with women's bodies. That should be on a state level. The individual people within those states should vote on what goes on within their states. That's it. That's it. They fearmonger y'all so much. I can't wait to do some street interviews. I can't wait to get back to the city and do some street interviews. I can't stand these people. I cannot stand these people. I genuinely can't stand the lies that these people tell.
This is what's happening in our country because of Donald Trump. And understand, he is not done. As a part of his agenda, he and his allies would limit access to birth control, ban medication abortion, and enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress. And get this, he plans to create a national anti-abortion coordinator and force states to report on women's miscarriages and abortions. Simply put, they are out of their minds.
I'm amazed. I am seriously amazed.
And one must ask.
This is a fallen country. This is a fallen country, but we'll get to that.
One must ask, why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women.
I don't.
We trust women.
I don't. I don't. You do? The Bible said, no. Let me tell you something. The King James Version of the Bible, in Genesis, in the beginning, I trust women to go and talk to the serpent. That's what I trust. Listen, I don't care what y'all say. Y'all could feel how y'all want to feel. Y'all could think what y'all want to think. I am not in any way, shape, and form ever going to advocate for a woman to lead me. Say what you want, frame it how you want to. I don't care what you think. I stand firm in my principles and in my beliefs. I am never going to advocate for a woman to lead me. Ever, ever, ever.
And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. The freedom to live safe from gun violence in our schools, communities, and places of worship. The freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and live free from the pollution that fuels the climate crisis. And the freedom that unlocks all the others, the freedom to vote. With this election,
the freedom to vote? All they said was bring your ID so we can make sure you're not an illegal immigrant that's casting fake votes.
Finally have the opportunity to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. Let me be clear, and let me be clear. After decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border. Last year...
Okay, so we just gonna gaslight? We in gaslight mode? Okay, all right, well then listen. Y'all wanna go left? Then let's go all the way left.
Joe and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades.
And you know I'm gonna debunk this ASAP.
The Border Patrol endorsed it.
Hold on, wait.
To write the strongest. Last year, Joe and I brought.
Last year, let's put this all in perspective. Last year, 2023, end of 2023, the border been open since y'all got into office. They had more people illegally cross the border in the first 2 years of them being in office, the first 3 years of them being in office, than the entire last 10 years combined. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. That's not a Republican talking point. That's not a conservative view. These are pure facts. They've had more people illegally cross the border over in this term. It's insane. Last year? You mean after y'all sued Texas in order to make sure that they continue to open up their borders to let more people in? You mean after the sanctuary cities? You mean after New York? You mean after Chicago? You mean after Los Angeles? You mean after Houston? You mean after Atlanta? After they was hiding them in the airport in Boston? What the Jesus Christ. Oh, man. Y'all gonna let her gaslight y'all? Seriously?
Together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol endorsed it. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal.
No,
well,
but
I refuse to play politics with our security, and here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law.
All right, so let me just give y'all a little bit of education for those of y'all that's been asleep at the wheel that votes based off of identity politics, okay? You don't need a bipartisan border agreement in order to protect our borders. You don't. All you got to do is allow for them to actually do their job. And instead of saying, hey, process every single person in here and put them on buses and let them choose a city that they want to go to as the borders are, because you were in charge of the border over the last 3.5 years, how come they couldn't get anything done the entire time? And let me also be very clear. He didn't kill the deal. What they did was they said, we need to separate how we continue to fund Homeland Security because they all tried to package it in at the same time. So what y'all said y'all didn't want is continuing to fund the wars over in Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan and giving billions and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars over to there, and also overly contributing into NATO, in which it doesn't serve our best interests because we fund 80 to 85% of what's happening in NATO. So that's what y'all said that y'all didn't want. So what they said was, we're going to package it in all one big deal, and we're going to call it a bipartisan border agreement. And if y'all don't sign it, then what we gonna do is we gonna tell the American people, no, Donald Trump killed that bill because it would jeopardize his presidency. No. We don't want no new wars. We don't want to continue to fund new wars. And we don't want a bipartisan deal to where we're giving you money to continue to fund new wars in order to get funding to continue to improve our border security. It's two separate issues. It's two separate, because they gonna just throw this in there in y'all face. Do y'all know that I actually have people that come up on my panel sometimes and say, well, why did Trump kill the border deal? You fool. Do your research before you start to come up there and ask dumb questions. They didn't kill the border deal. They killed continuing to try to give money over into Ukraine as far as making this a packaged issue instead of separating it. Because they trying to finesse y'all. They always trying to throw something in there to benefit themselves instead of just doing what the American people want. We want secure borders. Why they got to be a bipartisan deal? That's your job. That's your job. And they fought Trump the entire time of his presidency in order to make our borders even more secure. And they championed Obama. Let me stop, bro.
I know we can live up to our proud heritage as a nation of immigrants and reform our broken immigration system. We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border.
And how come they didn't do it? How come they didn't do it? If we can do it, then why didn't they do it? Y'all had 3.5 years. As a matter of fact, Y'all been in office for 12 of the last 16 years, and we had more people coming over into the border over the last 3.5 years than any time in history. Why didn't y'all do it? Why didn't they do it then?
And America, we must also be steadfast in advancing our security and values abroad. As Vice President, I have confronted threats to our security, negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave troops overseas.
No, what she did was she went over to Ghana and the other African places in order to advocate for the alphabet community. That's a fact. Make me pull up the evidence.
As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
Who believes this?
And I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families, and I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice.
Let me show y'all what she was doing, because a lot of people are not familiar and a lot of people just don't understand what's going on out in these streets. But I want to show y'all what was really happening as far as her talking to y'all national, international leaders. While Sudan is over there absolutely in turmoil, this is what she was doing.
Madam Vice President, you have made clear that the message of this trip is centered on a...
Remember, this was a little over a year ago, March 27th, 2023. This is her in her purple pantsuit.
Collaborative future. At the same time, the Biden administration committed to calling out any foreign government that advanced anti-gay legislation or violates human rights. All three of the countries that you are visiting on this trip.
I don't need no fact checkers. I can bring my, I'm a fact checker. I'm the fact checker. I don't need no fact checkers. I'm the fact checker. We don't need no biased people that got an agenda on one side or the other. We just gonna pull up the videos. I'm the fact checker.
Have advanced or proposed anti-gay legislation. Ghana has proposed a bill that would imprison those that engage in same-sex intercourse. Gay sex remains a crime in Tanzania, and same-sex relationships are outlawed in Zambia. What have you said to the president and plan to say to other leaders on this trip about this crackdown on human rights?
I'll start. I have raised this issue. And let me be clear about where we stand. First of all, for the American press who are here, you know that a great deal of work in my career has been to address human rights issues, equality issues across the board, including as it relates to the LGBT community. And I feel very strongly about the importance of supporting the freedom and supporting and fighting for equality among all people, and that all people be treated equally. I will also say that this is an issue that we consider, and I consider, to be a human rights issue, and that will not change. The president and I had a conversation on this very topic, but the conversation was not about China as much as it is about the enduring and important direct relationship that the United States has with Ghana and with African nations. I will tell you that we are very clear, and I will speak for myself and on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration, that the relationship between the United States and this continent and African leaders is an important one. There's a historical basis for the relationship, not to mention as we look forward, as all governments should, and recognize the unachieved, as of yet, opportunities that exist going forward. The median age on the continent of Africa is 19. Think about what that means in terms of potential. Think about the fact that by 2050, 1 in 4 people occupying a place on Mother Earth will be on this continent. And what that means. The trip that I have taken to come here, being here, is about recognizing the incredible opportunity with a sense of optimism about what we do now and how it will impact the world going forward. So this trip and this relationship Yes, we are concerned with security. We are concerned with what is happening on the globe as a whole. We are clear-eyed about that. But this trip is motivated by the importance of the direct relationship between the United States and Ghana, and as I travel the continent, those countries as well.
Psycho word babble, word salad, and ultimately her pushing an agenda and saying, y'all better get with the program if you want the United States of America to continue to have this strengthening relationship. And we want y'all to continue to advocate for who? For who? On a worldwide basis, they want y'all to advocate for who? Come on. All we got to do is go and look at the videos. I know that y'all don't want to do the research. I know that y'all ain't trying to deep dive into it. I know that y'all not trying to have this conversation. I know that y'all don't want to be uncomfortable. They went over there, they promised aid, they promised investments, and they also wanted a requirement of them to do what? They pledged $139 million to Ghana to counter the ties that they had with China. And one of the requirements was what? One of the requirements was what? Ghana, the speaker over in Ghana started to slam them for their anti-LGBTQ bill. Oh, you don't believe me? Okay, so hold on one second. We're gonna get back to that. Cause y'all keep saying of what it is that she gonna do and what her international relationship is with all of these places and stuff. It's all right there. Oh, okay. So I can't play that one. Anyways, let's get back to her speech. We want to get back to her speech.
I look at the future on space and artificial intelligence, that America, not China, wins the competition for the 21st century, and that we strengthen, not abdicate, our global leadership. Trump, on the other hand, threatened to abandon NATO. He encouraged Putin to invade our allies, said Russia could, quote, do whatever the hell they want. 5 days before Russia attacked Ukraine, I met with President Zelensky to warn him about Russia's plan to invade. I helped mobilize a global response, over 50 countries, to defend against Putin's aggression. And as president, I will stand strong with Ukraine and our NATO allies.
This is so bad. Look at Ben Stiller. Look at Ben Big Head, Ozempic Head Stiller. I used to like his movies now. That's why he ain't making no movies no more. I liked Ben Stiller's movies back in the day. Ruben Pfeffer, Along Came Polly. I liked Along Came Polly.
With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock, because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. And let me be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend
She just got the protesters outside of the DNC, man.
Itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including
people just cheering. They don't even know what
sexual
that means.
violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry.
I would love for them to get involved in what's going on over in Sudan. Y'all know what's happening over in Sudan? The genocide that's happening in Sudan? Y'all don't care about that part? Don't worry about it. Let's continue.
People fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war, such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination. Further action is necessary to defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un who are rooting for Trump. Because, you know, they know he is easy to manipulate with flattery and favors. They know Trump won't hold autocrats accountable because he wants to be an autocrat himself. And as president, I will never waver in defense of America's security and ideals, because in the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand and I know where the United States belongs.
Is this supposed to be them showing her as a strong leader?
Americans, I love our country with all my heart. Everywhere I go, in everyone I meet, I see a nation that is ready to move forward, ready for the next step in the incredible journey that is America. I see an America where we hold fast to the fearless belief that built our nation and inspired the world, that here, in this country, anything is possible, that nothing is out of reach. An America where we care for one another, look out for one another, and recognize that we have so much more in common than what separates us. That none of us has to fail for all of us to succeed.
You see the podium, the speech on the podiums?
And that in unity there is strength. You know, our opponents in this race are out there every day denigrating America, talking about how terrible everything is. Well, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are. America, let us show each other and the world who we are and what we stand for. Freedom, opportunity, compassion, dignity, fairness, and endless possibilities. We are the heirs to the greatest democracy in the history of the world. And on behalf of our children and our grandchildren and all those who sacrificed so dearly for our freedom and liberty, we must be worthy of this moment. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism and faith, to fight for this country we love, to fight for the ideals we cherish, and to uphold the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth, the privilege and pride of being an American. So let's get out there, let's fight for it, let's get out there, let's vote for it, and together let us write the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told.
Can't believe that a woman like this would even be considered president of the United States of America. I'm so broken. I'm so broken. I am absolutely broken. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There you have your pitch on the Democratic side for president of the United States of America. Let me go ahead and read some of these super chats, and then we're going to get to Trump's reaction to it. It's Friday. It's Friday, y'all. Let me read some of y'all super chats. Spaces says, Your homeboy Al Sharpton gave a speech. Why is he my homeboy? I don't know where y'all be getting that from. J-Boy says, ridiculous. She is a DEI and fake. Shout out to you. I appreciate you, J-Boys. J Ben in the building says, I ain't never seen a black person in a hood load up a Mayflower truck to move. It's always been bust down U-Haul trucks with a bad with a bad suspension. No Lames TV says this is the same exact speech she been given. Yep, that's true. Stan Mansa says, Panderfest 2024. I appreciate you. Antoine 2 says, she is saying a whole lot of nothing. This is wild. I appreciate you. GSH everything says still no talks of policies. Hardheads in the building says, the world is truly a stage. I appreciate you, Hardheads. Live Your Purpose coverage says, I wanted Tulsi to be president. I love her. Appreciate you for the super chat. Shout out to Truth with Ease. Says media has propped her up as a second coming of Jesus. Ain't they? King Stannis is in the building. Says Trump can end this whole election if he say he will push for family court reform. I don't know about that. People gonna vote however they gonna vote at this point. BZE says they might as well call the Democratic Party the woman's only party because they never talked about the guys, only the bad things that guys have done to girls. Sad. Greg Charlie is in the building. Shout out to Greg Charlie says, I wonder how they convinced the CP5 to speak out about Trump, writing an article not mentioning them by name, but not speaking on the crooked Democrat DA who finessed him out of a false confession. Shout out to you. Forsaken Archives is in the building. Says the Dems will always have to have a person of color. Now, since Obama, they can't, as you say, put the genie back in the bottle again. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Big Mike Real says, so they were still talking, so they were still killing babies while she was giving a speech. Reg Daniel was in the building, says, I am supposed to be moved by their speeches. They do nothing for me. Anton in the chat, I'm here to learn. Please help me see past the BS. Oh, I'm going to educate you. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm. The likes is a little bit low. Likes is a little low. We got a lot of people in here, but the likes is a little bit low. What's going on? Chase Barnes is in the building, says, happy Friday, AD and peeps. So I tapped into a few DNC speeches at the convention. I know I can't be off, but felt my soul fleeing my body, listening to them talk. The RNC had soul and spirit. Shout out to you, Chase Barnes. I appreciate you. Rush King 19 says, the other day when my parents had one of Kamala Live speeches on, I swear it was a replay, but it wasn't. It was live. She says the same stuff. Feet Funkerson is in the building, says it's always the most important election. Always. I appreciate that. Frederico El Padrino says, I wonder what Blanche Vitero, Willie Brown's first lady, thinking during all this bumbleclat chitter chatter. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Clay Hart is in the building. Clay Hart says, Steve Kerr speaking at the DNC was embarrassing. Did Steve Kerr speak at the DNC? Frederico says, to Harris' credit, there were armed individuals in the January 6th crowd. Hella FBI agents didn't stop that either. Shout out to Frederico. Raising Kingdom Kids is in the building, says supporting the movement and no marvel. For Satan himself is transformed into an angel of a light, 2 Corinthians 11 and 14. I appreciate you. Forsaken Archives comes through and says there's a lawyer who broke down the hush money. How was all fake name Professor Led Rubin. I'll send you the email. Truth with Ease says, I was at January 6th, was all Dia setup. Oh, really? Talk about it then. Victor Williams says, is the DNC a bash Trump convention or will they actually talk about solutions? Also, was her father present? I don't think she mentioned him once. I don't even know if she got a relationship with that dude. Tax Smith says, we're going to pay for everything and lower taxes. We're going to print money and the taxes will come through inflation. No, it's going to fix itself. Don't worry about it. Serious Black Thought says, laughing my A off. Just saw the white guy Doug impersonation. He knew black women would eat that up with the black women effect. Keep speaking the truth. I'm on it. Ryan J is in the building, says, Kamala is talking about Trump's 4 years being bad. Her and Biden give billions to Ukraine and weapons. If she wins, Putin will be fed up one day and use a nuclear weapon. High Tolerance is in the building, said, from my observation, the studies in the D's, are the ones who are, for the most part, up in arms over reproductive rights. Riddle me this. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Rush King 19 says, I'm over budget and have to cut back. If I'm over budget and have to cut back, but the government is over budget, we take more taxes, not cut back. I mean, they are smart because taxes will take your taxes either way. Steady income. Shout out to you. I appreciate you, Rush King. Frederico says, fun fact, abortion is a modern day term for child sacrifice, which they used in ancient times to venerate the small god Malak. I appreciate you. Thank you for continuing to roll with me. Fresh the Great is in the building, says, what's good, Anton? The Bible says a woman shall not have authority over a man. No debating. I agree. Hello?
Anton, good morning. This is Henry calling from Mayor. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Henry? What's going on?
I'm doing good. How was your flight?
It was great. I'll be there today. I know we got an appointment today.
Oh, that's awesome, Anton. That's awesome. Are you here in Miami?
I am here in Miami. I flew in just to come and see you guys.
How do you find the weather?
I haven't really been out too much, but it's pretty nice. It's pretty warm.
Compared to New York, right?
No, Detroit.
Oh, you are from the... Okay, well, how is Detroit? The weather is like cool or...
It's about 80 plus.
80 plus. Okay. So, okay. So how many days you gonna spend here in Miami?
I'm flying out today, so I'm gonna come visit you guys, and then I'm flying out today.
Because I thought that you maybe want to spend like 2 days, and maybe you want to go to maybe some beaches here, and you know.
I'll be back in the wintertime.
Beautiful. Anton, listen, I'm calling you because what about if we can meet at 12 o'clock?
12 o'clock is fine.
It's fine. 12 o'clock. Actually, I can meet you to right now if you want, or 11.
No, 12 o'clock would be better. 12 would be better.
12 o'clock. Beautiful. See you at 12 o'clock, okay?
All right, I'll see you guys.
All right, Anton. Bye.
Bye-bye. Let me read some more of these super chats, and then we're going to rock out. We trust women is AD's favorite part of the speech. Pretty interesting. I think that was pretty interesting. Cultivator says, what up, though? Did you see New York Post cover? I didn't. Send it to me. Ryan J says, what is a woman? Kamala? Yeah, I'd love to ask her that question, too. Oop, nobody ask her any tough questions. AD, I got you in BR, and my Uber driver is telling me to vote for Kamala, or we back in Jim Crow with Trump. Your Uber driver is an idiot, and he don't deserve no tip. Your Uber driver is an idiot, and he don't deserve no tip. Give him a 5-star rating if his driving is good, but don't give him a tip. Shout out to you. I appreciate you, Milk. Uber drivers, and that's why you're an Uber driver. That's why you're a gig worker. Let me talk to your Uber driver real quick. Don't you realize that that's the reason that you in a position that you in right now? And it ain't nothing wrong with hustling and being an Uber driver, but that's why you in the position that you in is because you keep thinking the way that you thinking. Get your life together. Get your life together and realize that the opportunities for you, black man or black woman, whatever, if you're a woman, it's even worse because you shouldn't even be out there driving in the first place. And if you're a man, then shame on you for sitting there running in the Victim Olympics, and that's why your tires is bald. Don't you need some new tires? Don't you want to get a better position? Don't you realize that the depreciation on your vehicle is going to outstrip any money that you make as far as driving for Uber, unless you got a black truck? That's why you out there still advocating for, you keep trying to be an employee of Uber. Uber don't want you to be no employee. That's why you running Lyft and Uber at the same time and DoorDashing at the same time. Wake up. Because the foreign and the illegals, they're going to be taking your job too. Working a gig job and trying to give some financial advice to me. Boy, who are you talking to? Oat milk. Tell him I said it. Asma Rowland is in the building, says the Bible also states a woman should not teach nor lead men. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Let me get the rest of these super chats rocking out, and then we're going to get to Trump's reaction. Cozell says, how can you even identify with this? Wake up. Wake up. Christopher Mayberry says, yo, AD Cam didn't get a pre-beating before. Nope, not at all. And that's why she up there. Chase Barnes in the building says, hey, AD, why do you use the word freedom so much? Like, what does that actually really mean? What do you mean? You don't know what freedom means? The freedom to be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it instead of being handcuffed to the government. That's why I use it. Peardont says the bill requires black people to let 3,000 migrants go a day, and after that, they take 100% of them to the legal point of entry, guaranteeing them asylum. Remember, they was calling them asylum seekers? They don't call them that no more. Big B says this week was the lead us, Trump derangement syndrome, and the religion of skin color worship. Shout out to you. I appreciate you, Big B. Forsaken Archive says, how could Trump stop a bill when he doesn't have a seat in office right now? The gaslighting is crazy. Tax Smith then goes on to say, unburdened by what has been, can't with her. Yeah, she always get that speech. Patricia Brown is in the building, says she went to Jamaica with the same agenda to push the LGBT. She is a disgrace. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that. Low Black Duck 2001 says, so the border bill allowed for an emergency shutdown if daily encounters average over 4,000 for 7 days. So if it's 3,999, that's 28,000 per week. You better at math than me, big dog. I appreciate you. Rush King 19 says, I can see how some countries see America as a threat because when a country keeps trying to influence other countries or take part in the government or take over, that's crazy. Agreed. Saquon goes on to say they are pushing the LGBTQ on black people like crazy. Any thoughts? I think it's demonic. Tunac 50 says people forgot about the student loan bailout. They failed to deliver. Mine's paid off because I sacrificed and paid it myself. Wake up, people. Glow Hardy goes on to say the promotion of the alphabet community philosophy can be seen as a social engineering weapon because it promotes disease and the stoppage of lineages. High Tolerance goes on to say her husband is rocking a G-string while she's sporting the granny panties. You know she needs all of the elastic possible. Secure the flat back. Shout out to the flatbacks. We like flatbacks over here. Ryan J says, of course she will defend Israel. She's owned by Israel, along with 99% of all of the people in Congress. Is gonna red pill y'all. Look up APAC. Performance Chip says, you can't make this up. Shout out to my dog Kevin Samuels. Courtney J says, they always talk about what they'll do with terrorists in other countries. Won't deal with terrorists that's here in the United States of America. Or they just let them in. Don't worry about it. Tax Smith goes on to say, if Kamala wins, man, get ready to be drafted in the trenches by the end of 2025. And don't try to switch genders either. Courtney Smith goes on to say they don't even realize that she just double spoke about a ceasefire and supporting Israel at the same time. Shadow Dragon TV says Putin openly admitted in a Tucker interview that he prefers Biden, Kamala's administration over Trump. She's straight lying and they eating it up. We know. A.R. Smitty says, I know what you did last summer. 3, Born or Gun Wild. Shout out to you. Jay Ben is in the building, says, my mom, where your daddy, Milk Run. Shout out to you. Jason Holmes is in the building, says Harris will push Africa more to China because they want to avoid adopting the alphabet community policies for the little aid when China will not demand that and offer more aid potentially bad for the U.S. moves to EVs. The Faith Factor, shout out to the Faith Factor out here in the building, says Planned Parenthood was set up at the conversation performing A's in the food trucks. Mike Live says, I got your back. Shout out to Mike Live. I appreciate you. I meant convention, not conversation. Okay, I got you. I see you, Faith Factor. Thank you, baby. Mars goes on to say, Dems own the black media is scary. SA says, are you Cass Tech alum? Yes, class of 2000. Shout out to all my technicians out there in the building. Brock goes on to say, hey, my name is Dougie. My name is Doug. Pork Legacy, shout out to Pork Legacy. I appreciate you. Court Need Gar says, can't wait to rock it out with you, bro, on a one-on-one call. This level up is coming. Shout out to all of my people that's in the Patreon. Roz Quadrant says, AD, welcome to Miami. I'm a new bag chaser and I'm looking forward to it all. Shout out to the new chasers. If y'all not a part of the Patreon, link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Chase Barr says, no, AD, I was typing fast. I was asking, why do the Democrats use the word? Oh, because it's a triggering word. It makes it seem like Trump is going to lock everybody up. Isaiah Elliott says, I don't know who's more scary, Kamala or Jamisha. Kamala, because she actually has power. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. All right, y'all, we going to pivot. So we want to get Trump's reaction real quick to what was happening during the Kamala Harris's speech. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications.
Joining us now by phone, the 45th President of the United States, former President Donald Trump. Mr. President, thank you for joining us. You were truth socialing along this speech. What is your first reaction to it real time?
And I'm going to read the Cash Apps after this one.
Well, the biggest reaction is, why didn't she do the things that she's complaining about? All of these things that she talked about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do everything. But she didn't do any of it. She could have done it 3.5 years ago. She could do it tonight by leaving the auditorium and going to Washington, D.C. and closing the border. She doesn't need a bill. I didn't have a bill. I closed the border and created the safest border we've ever had in the history of our country. She could have done all of these things, and she could still do them. She's got 4.5, 5 months left. She can go there right now. She can do all of the things, many of the things that she's talking about and complaining about. It was a lot of complaining. She didn't talk about China. She didn't talk about fracking. She didn't talk about crime. She didn't talk about 70% of our people are living in poverty. She didn't talk about housing, really. The trade deficit. She didn't talk about child trafficking that she's allowed to happen because she was the border czar and she presided over the weakest border in the history of our country. It's an invasion. I was there today, as you know, Brett. It's an invasion of our country taking place at our border, our southern border. It's a total invasion. And now it's starting at our northern border also, through Canada. And she didn't talk about any of that because she talks, but she doesn't do. It's no action. But, you know, look, other than that, it was a nice-looking room.
Hey, even the anchors had to laugh. He said, listen, other than all of the disaster that we see happening in our country, because speeches are cute. I like speeches. I think that she was very, very presidential looking. Not acting, looking like a person that will be tough. But when we started to debunk all of these things, and she didn't talk about the trade deficit. She didn't talk about China. She didn't talk about the fact that they can go. You don't need a bipartisan deal that you're holding Republicans and the American people over a border in order to secure it. You don't need it. You don't need a bipartisan deal to make sure that our borders are secure. That is your job. That is your job. That is the job of the federal government, to not process people in here illegally under the cloak of saying that they're asylum seekers and doing what you are supposed to do. She had no conversation she didn't even know how to pronounce Kim Jong-un correctly. She didn't even know how to pronounce it correctly. And he's right. He said, listen, so you telling me over the last 4 years you couldn't get nothing done, and it's going to take your presidency to actually do it. Why aren't people demanding answers and saying, listen, what is wrong with this woman and how is she able to get away with this, considering that it's not like she's a candidate? Do y'all realize that she's actually in office now? Like, I don't know if y'all really putting this in perspective. Her and Biden is in office now. Like right now. They're currently in office right now. Literally. They can go and work on this stuff right now.
Mr. President, Martha McCallum here. She said that she is promising middle-class tax cuts, and she says that if you are elected, it will cost Americans $3,900 more a year in increased taxes. She's tying all of that to this Project 2025. That's where that number is coming from. What do you say to that?
Well, she knows I have nothing to do with Project 25. They throw it out. A group of people got together. They did a thing. I haven't even seen it. I don't want to see it. I told them specifically, I don't want to see it. People know where I stand. I lower taxes. She's raising taxes. She's going to give a tax increase of 4 to 5 times what people and companies are paying right now. The country will go into a depression if they do it.
I think
she
so.
didn't talk about interest rates. I mean, the interest rates are now getting close to record rates. People can't do business. Nobody can borrow money. People can't go to the American dream and buy a house because they can't afford the interest rates. And even if they could, the money isn't available. She didn't talk about any of that. No, if she got in, look, she's a Marxist. She always was. She always will be. She's going to leave the border open. I was there today, and the Border Patrol, as you know, gave me total endorsements and all of that.
And that's the beautiful part about it, is that at the end of the day, are they even familiar with and are they even aware of what's really happening at the border? They are the sitting president and vice president of the United States of America. She was tasked with tackling the border issue, and they are not even getting the endorsement of the Border Patrol. They're not getting the endorsement of the Border Patrol. The very ones that's getting paid by your tax dollars today in order to ensure that we safe here in the United States of America, they're not endorsing them. They endorsing Trump. So if the people on the front lines are saying, hey man, we want to get them up out of there, we actually want Trump, that says a lot. See, all of that talking and speeching and junk, that don't mean nothing. We have clear comparison between 8 years ago and 4 years ago.
I've gotten endorsed by almost every major police group in the United States, but she is a Marxist with open borders. She's not going to have any fracking in Pennsylvania. She's going to close down the oil and gas industry, and our country is going to go bust. She didn't talk about the $35 trillion, which I was going to start paying off with liquid gold that we have right under our feet. We were going to start paying off debt, lowering taxes still further. And, you know, she wants to raise the taxes on corporations. What they're going to do is pick up and move to another country, like the pharmaceutical industry moved to Ireland and they moved to other places. Many of these industries will just they're international companies. If she raises taxes like she wants to do on companies, there go those jobs. I'm more interested in the jobs than the companies. But there go those jobs. And what's going to happen, Martha, they're going to pick up. They're going to move to another country. They're going to pick up and move to another country where they're going to be promised taxes at half the numbers that she's talking about and more than that.
Mr. President, on the issue of
and people don't understand that it's a global marketplace. So when people say, well, I'm going to take over the firm, I'm going to take on the big banks and I'm going to take on the companies, man, don't you know that they can go anywhere? And it's places in this world that would love to have them there. And it's not going to even stop them from doing business in America. They just going to take their profits over to different countries.
Immigration, Vice President Harris, like many Democrats in this hall throughout this week, have used the bipartisan Senate bill and your efforts to lobby Republicans not to move forward with that, to use the issue in this election as part of this speech. She said she will sign that bipartisan bill.
And moderators, do not censor people that disagree with me. Let them rock and let them have their opinions. Chat lives matters. I am not the type of person, again, let me emphasize this. I am not the type of person, as long as it's not overly disrespectful in the chat and people want to have a difference of opinion, let them rock. And I'm not saying that anybody is censoring anybody, because the moderators are doing a phenomenal job letting people have a conversation, letting people disagree, letting people saying what they want to say. We don't censor people over here. You can say whatever you want to say as long as it's not overly disrespectful and it's not attacking anybody that I love in particular. But outside of that, if you have an opinion about me, you don't like me, you don't like what it is that I'm saying, have at it. Engage, say what you want to say, but absolutely I stand on what I said and I mean what I said and I said what I mean. We don't censor people over here. Shout out to the moderators. The moderators been letting people rock. Shout out to the moderators.
She, to your point, doesn't talk about executive orders that could have been launched in the beginning of the Biden administration. But how do you respond to that? And are you ready to debate Kamala Harris on September 10th?
Let me just say this. Somebody said, what would you consider overly disrespectful? Don't talk about my kid. Don't talk about my family, something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like something that ain't got nothing to do with what we talking about. Like as long as you keeping it on what it is that we talking about and you keeping it on whatever the subject is, Rock out. You got an opinion just like I got an opinion. Rock out. I mean, you know. Come on, we adults. We know what being overly disrespectful is. You know what I'm saying? So, rock out. Do y'all thing.
What you heard tonight.
Well, number one debate on September 4th at Fox, and she turned it down because, as you know, Brett, I was willing to debate with you and Martha. I was going to debate on September 4th. She turned it down. And I'm willing to debate on, I don't like ABC. I think ABC is probably the worst of the group, but I'm willing to do ABC. I was willing to do CNN with Joe Biden, and you saw what happened there. I mean, CNN does not treat me or Republicans very good, but I was willing to do it because it was the only way I could get to debate him and ask him how that turned out. But look, I am willing to debate, and I think we should do much more than one debate. But you know better than anybody, I'm ready, willing, and able because I told you yes, and she turned you down.
And on the immigration issue?
On the immigration, it's very simple. The bill was horrible. It would have allowed millions of people to pour into our country. Would have been horrible. It was a horrible bill. It was a joke. She doesn't need a bill. I didn't have a bill. I closed the border. I had the safest border in the history of our country. I closed it up. As president, now she'll have to get Joe to do it, but she could probably have a lot to do with that, right? Now Joe's missing. He's on a beach in California. But you know what? All she has to do, or all he has to do, is say, I want to close the border. The border is closed as of now. They don't need bills. They don't want to close the border. I stood at the border today in 100-degree weather, and I will tell you, it's a dangerous place. And I was being told by Secret Service and a lot of other law enforcement, sir, it's really dangerous here. I think it's time to leave. You wouldn't believe the things that I saw at that border. She's the border czar. Now she wants to deny that, but she's the border. In any event, she was in charge of the border. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border so unsafe as this one. 20 million people have poured into our country, many of them from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylum, and record number of terrorists. And other countries are releasing their prisoners from their jails. They're emptying out their jails into the United States of America because of her incompetence and her bad border policies. She is a horrible, horrible person to run this country. We won't have a country if she gets elected.
Let me ask you this, sir. There has been a huge appeal and momentum.
Check this out. Somebody said this. I watched him. It was boring. Do y'all want to be entertained, or do y'all want to actually have safe borders? Why do y'all need fun games, twerking? Like, what is it with this? Oh, I want to be entertained. I want to be all of that stuff. I don't understand that part. Why is that a thing? Are y'all more concerned about policies and what's best for your family? Or do y'all want like real substantive conversations that's going to actually give you an opportunity to talk back and forth about whether or not it's going to actually help you? Are y'all focused on cheers, or are you focused on your finances? Are you focused on cheers, or are you focused on whether or not you're going to have open borders and apartment buildings is going to be taken over in Denver? What is wrong? Well, like, why is that a thing? Why do y'all need to be attention span? What is wrong with our people? We are too old to still talk about, I don't know. Let me finish. Let him say what he's saying.
For women voters, she's trying to pull the youth vote, the Hispanic vote, the black vote back in her direction. Polls show that she's having some success in that at this point. So what are you going to do? What's your strategy to rebuild the momentum that you had with those voters?
No, she's not having success. I'm having success. I'm doing great with the Hispanic voters. I'm doing great with black men. I'm doing great with women
because
women want safety. They want safety, and they don't have safety when they have somebody allowing 20 million people into our country, many of them very dangerous people. No, it's only in your eyes that they have that, Martha. We're doing very well in the polls. We're leading in most of the polls, and in the swing states, We're leading in almost every one of them.
Mr. President, let me
Michigan,
interrupt.
The auto workers are voting for me because you're not going to have an auto industry if she gets elected.
Mr.
They're going
President,
to
two
all
quick
electric
things.
cars. All electric cars are going to be made in China. And you're not going to have, you literally will not have an auto industry. The United Auto Workers ought to be ashamed of themselves. They sold the workers down the tubes.
Two quick things as we wrap up here, Mr. President. Tomorrow, do you expect to be endorsed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? And are you making a specific effort in Georgia to make up, if you will, with the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp?
Well, I just saw Brian on a very good man. Did you ever hear of a man named Sean Hannity? And he was interviewed by Sean Hannity. And he was very nice, and he said he wants Trump to win, and he's going to work with me 100%. And I think we're going to have a very good relationship with Brian Kemp. And that was on just before you people went on with that speech that we just listened to.
And RFK Jr.?
It just happened. And as far as RFK, I've had a great relationship with him over the years. I respect him. He respects me. I have no idea if he's going to endorse me. I know he's got a news conference. We happen to be in the same state. Arizona will be in the same state, but in quite different parts of the state. But it's possible we will be meeting tomorrow, and we'll be discussing it. He said, look, he was treated very unfairly by the Democrats. He would have beaten Joe Biden in a Democrat primary. I have no doubt about it. And they made it absolutely impossible for him. They made it that you have to get 60, 70% of the vote just to get in. And you know what?
President.
In the end, the Democrats did the same thing to Joe Biden. They threw Joe Biden out of the party.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the one thing that you can't say is that he's not telling the truth and he's speaking his mind. Let me go ahead and read some of these super chats, and then we're going to get over to Trump being at the border and what that looked like, because they were saying that it was a threat on his life at the border. First, I want to acknowledge the Cash App. Shout out to Molly. Let me give a round of applause to Molly for always holding me down. I appreciate you, Molly, for always holding me down. And then Brandon Diamond Select Jewelry is in the building, says Trump will be in the city on Monday. Really? All right. Well, we're going to talk about that. Shout out to Brandon Diamond Select Jewelry. I appreciate y'all. Let me read some of these super chats, and then we're going to move over into Trump over the border. Phil Knight says, shout out to the gifted and the talented. Y'all need to tune in to After Hours. High Tolerance says, much love to Trump. Shout out to Trump. I think he's going to win by a landslide. Janessa Coleman says, good morning, Daniels. Shout out to the Donald Trump for letting Kwame Kilpatrick out of prison. However, I'm scared both parties. I'm sorry. Don't worry. We're just going to educate you. We're going to bring you along. The Faith Factor says Biden's 25K student loan bailout failed, so he took credit for the current policy signed in 2007 by George W. Bush Jr. Tax Smith in the building says Governor Abbott single-handedly changed the combo on the border by shipping them out. Before that, it was racist. Now big cities protest for it to close. Now they want the borders to close. That's because they had to suffer. Big B says the Democratic Party is so powerful and well-connected, they said they have the same people that they enslaved and inflicted with Jim Crow fiercely loyal to them. 100%. Cartier 82 says Trump knows, can't wait for Stock Club tomorrow. Don't be telling everybody what's going on. You got to be a part of the Patreon in order to get into that. I am Annie Marie says time and a place for everything. It's time to joke and it's a time to get serious. I got kids. I don't need to be entertained. Facts. Just give me what I need. Kenneth Young says we need to bring drilling back back more in America. Overseas thing is old. I agree 100%. SA says I'm starting to think that we don't even deserve Trump. We don't. We deserve to suffer, to be honest with you. AJ goes on to say, being entertained is temporary. Your safety and finances are permanent. Meg Thee Stallion twerking is not going to feed your family. Shout out to you, AJ. I appreciate y'all. Let's go ahead and pivot for a second. Let's talk about the border. All right, so Trump was at the border yesterday while Kamala Harris and everybody was at the Democratic National Convention giving their speeches. Trump was at the border doing what he was doing and speaking to the people and being on the front lines.
In hopes of drawing attention away from the convention, former President Donald Trump is campaigning in the battleground state of Arizona to focus on immigration. Trump toured the U.S.-Mexico border where he accused Vice President Harris of not doing enough to stop the flow of illegal immigrants. CBS's Caitlin Huey-Burns is there.
Former President Trump went to the Arizona border today to tie the thorny immigration issue to his rival, Kamala Harris.
We had a border czar who was the border czar. She loved the title, but she didn't want to do the work because she's lazy.
Trump has called Harris the border czar repeatedly, but she was actually tasked by the president with dealing with the root causes of immigration from Central America, not the crisis at the border.
Now, I want y'all to remember that as we look at this stuff, one of the things that I like to do is I like to source from different things. So I don't want to just look at Fox News stuff. I don't want to just look at the speeches on CNN. I don't just want to see what's happening on MSNBC with Joy Reid and all of that nonsense. I like to get differences of opinion. So you're going to see comparing and contrasting. And for different issues, we want to see it so that we can better understand exactly what's going on.
Fourth visit to a battleground state in as many days, and CBS News polling shows 87% of Republicans say immigration is a major factor in their vote this election. It's been a constant attack line for Trump, using increasingly harsh rhetoric.
She is a radical left Marxist. She wants open borders. She wants our country. I don't understand why anybody would want it, but she wants our country to be open to the world's criminals, so they can come in and rape and pillage.
What Trump leaves out is that illegal border crossing numbers are at their lowest point in 4 years, due in part to the executive actions taken by President Biden in June. Democrats include...
So what you're telling me, and again, I just want to better understand this. So you're telling me that from... Come on, y'all, listen. Pay attention to what's going on here. And we know that this is a biased breakdown, but we're going to embrace it. And one of the reasons that we're going to embrace it is because we can then deep dive into the context, right? Since June, July, that's 1 month. June to July is 1 month. And then into August. So for the last 2 months, listen, y'all. Oh, they gave me the balloon. Shout out to Apple. For the last 2 months, border crossings are down lower than the last 4 years. Let me say that for the people in the back, just in case y'all miss it. For the last 2 months, border crossings are down since action was taken in June. So wait a minute. This actually flies in the face of what they were trying to sell us at the Democratic National Convention. Because what Kamala Harris was trying to sell us was that Trump killing the border deal by advocating for his people that were in office to not embrace the border deal absolutely sealed the fate of what was happening in America as far as keeping our borders open. So wait a minute. You closed the border in June. Is that because it's an election coming up in November? So what happened to January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December of January of 2021? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December of 2022, which we were supposed to be in a pandemic. Now take that into consideration also. Imagine if we wasn't in the pandemic. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December of 2023. January, February, March, April, May, June in 2024. Okay, so we closed the borders in June with no border deal. No border deal. You close off the borders. We still have people coming into the country illegally. It's just not flowing as much, and it's the lowest it's been in the last 4 years. Okay, so somebody is lying here. And forgive me, my C student mindset and perspective has to break it down all the way so that we can all understand it in a simple form. And I'm going to read the super chats and I'm going to read the cash apps. I appreciate y'all. So they have no bipartisan agreement. Y'all still was able to do what you were supposed to do in the first place because it's an election coming up. And it's the lowest it's been in 4 years. So basically since you first got into office. So the thing that you're doing today is the thing that you could have been done. But you didn't do it. But you're going to do it when you get into office, even though it's being done in June. And so we got a sample size of 2 months to justify that y'all actually doing something at the border. I'm just I'm just breaking it down so that we can all fully understand it. That's what she said. Word for word, what she said. So you don't need an executive action or a bipartisan agreement to fund wars that had nothing to do with the border security in order for you to do what you're doing over the last 2 months. Because it's election season. Got it.
Including Harris, have criticized Trump for helping to kill a bipartisan Senate deal that would have strengthened border enforcement and increased funds for detention centers.
He tanked the bipartisan deal because he thought it would help him win an election.
Now, did y'all not hear this exact same rhetoric at the Democratic National Convention from her speech?
Which goes to show Donald Trump does not care about border security.
Oh, he only advocated for it for the entirety of his presidency, and he was blocked in every way, shape, and form from every single legislative branch, and they would not fund him continuing to build more border wall. Because I haven't forgot. I absolutely remember.
He only cares about himself.
And the U.S. Supreme Court today reinstated an Arizona state law that requires proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. And
wow. So now we can see citizenship instead of having a bunch of migrants flooding the polls saying that I ain't got no ID, but I am able to vote. I am able to vote. Let's continue to see what happened with him because he had to actually curb his visit to the border because it was a threat on his life.
Meanwhile, former President Trump visited Arizona today, focusing on immigration and touring the border wall that he has pledged.
Let me say this, especially for all of my Democrats in here that's upset with the fact that we just continuing to beat this down and expose these lies for what they are. Shout out to Eric Daniels. Shout out to all of the Democrats. Let me throw y'all some rope. Do y'all know that y'all would have had a much, much better chance, that Trump would not have been able to hammer y'all on this if all y'all had to do was secure the borders? And so y'all knew that this was coming. I said that this was going to be a major issue when we start to get into election season. And the interesting part about that is, why didn't they? That's always my question. What is so important? So important. And knowing that this was going to be a talking point for the Republicans and that this was going to be held over your heads, that you was going to have to be accountable for this, that we complained about this for 2.5 years straight. What was so important about getting up to 20 million people here in one term? What was so important? Did y'all think that this was going to go away? Because y'all would have a much easier path into the White House. Maybe y'all don't think that people care and that they so focused on identity politics that this wouldn't be a thing. What was so important that y'all had to leave the borders open? And I think that we all can agree that if y'all didn't leave the borders open, which this is something, this shouldn't even be something that divides us on the Republican and Democratic side. I think we all want secure borders, no? Why would they do this? Why would they leave the borders completely open for anybody to come in? I have no idea, unless it was to tie them back to the Democratic Party and then ultimately continue to control them and then make sure that they remain in power. It's the only logical option. It's the only reason. It is.
To complete, but the visit was cut short after the former president learned there was another threat to his life and a manhunt for the suspect.
KTLA's Samantha Cortese joining us live from the News Center. She's got more on this chaotic campaign stop. Sam.
Sandra and Micah, standing in front of an unfinished border wall in Sierra Vista, Arizona, the former president was confronted with yet another credible threat on his life. Here's what he had to say. Another possible assassination attempt thwarted.
Can I tell you something? Sure. We're in danger standing here talking.
Former President Trump catching up with Allie Bradley, border reporter.
So let's not talk any longer. No, I know about it, but they don't want me standing here. They don't want you standing here either. Have a good time. Thank you very much.
Hours later, federal authorities arrested 66-year-old Ronald Lee Searwood following a manhunt throughout Cochise County, Arizona. They say he posted threats to kill Trump, who was in Sierra Vista for a campaign event on border security.
We had a border czar who was the border czar. She loved the title, but she didn't want to do the work because she's lazy.
The former president attacked Vice President Harris on her handling of the southern border. Tonight, Vice President Harris addressed the border at the DNC.
I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border.
Former President Trump posted on social media, she talked about the rule of law, but as border czar, she allowed 20 million people into our country, many of them criminals who are maiming and killing our people. One of those victims, 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary, whose mother was at the border with the former president today.
Please take into consideration how important border control is, because we're losing very innocent people to heinous crimes that shouldn't be happening in the first place.
Earlier this year, the Senate killed an immigration bill. Some Democrats and nearly all Republicans voted against it, including Senator J.D. Vance.
So even some Democrats voted against it. Even the Democrats voted against it. Listen, man, we need to secure our borders. We need to be very careful about who it is that you will let in office, because they will basically be unseating you and you planning your own demise. Let me go ahead and read some of these super chats. I want to get into Vivek Ramaswamy, and then I want to give y'all my final thoughts after that. But before I do so, let me give a shout out to the people that supporting the platform. Brandon Diamond, Select Jewelry says, gotta love when you calls AD. Shout out to you. I appreciate you, my friend. And then Snap Tech Fix says, Trump talk big facts. They don't want you to know, and this is why they tried to delete him. Pay attention. Shout out to you, big dog. I appreciate you. Let me read some of these super chats also before we get into it. Frederico says, allegedly will upgrade from a physical border wall and move more towards facial recognition. What do you think? And they need all of it. They need physical too. Facial recognition is not going to stop people from walking over here. Sean Richards says, this election for Cam is in the bag. The fix is in. Nah, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. 81 million votes says border crossings are at their lowest because Biden started flying them in to keep them from overrunning in the border. I did hear about people jumping on planes too, but I don't know how true it is. My question is, how will people survive economically if Cam become president? They won't. They won't. They lied about jobs. You know, border numbers are BS. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Delta Fox is in the building, says, we need the people in the office who can do math and understand economics. It wouldn't impact Tim Walz because he doesn't own assets. Faith Factor in the building says, Dems pushing for same-day voter registration with zero verification of citizenship. That don't alarm y'all? That's not a red flag to y'all? Turfberg Berg says, has Kamala said Laken Riley's name yet? No, she needs to shut her mouth about the border. No, you know she's not going to say nothing. They ain't going to say no names. Kid Chameleon in the building says, Black Dem voting power will be obsolete once migrant votes is activated. Compare populations. Hashtag people are stupid. Tax Smith says, the fact that Cam was swapped to Trump's policies mean this entire time they knew what the people wanted and did the opposite anyway, and that's wild. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for continuing to support the platform and holding me down. Vivek Ramaswamy decided that he wanted to insert himself and have a conversation with communists. So a lot of people may not be familiar with what a communist is. Do y'all know what a communist is before we deep dive into this? Before we look at this interaction? Because we only going to spend about 10 minutes on this. A communist is basically a person that wants to tie themselves to the state. So everything that you do, it's almost socialism, right? In a way, it's very comparative to socialism. But the idea of communism, because I know a lot of times we don't look up words and we don't really understand what that means. The idea of communism is basically saying, from a C student's perspective, in summary, that the state owns everything and everything is just going to be spread out amongst the people accordingly. There is no incentive for capitalism. There is no incentive to be better. This person shouldn't make more than this person, regardless of what they do, because it's all of ours. It's all of the government's, and we want the government to be even more involved in our lives as far as making sure that they determine what is happening everywhere amongst us, instead of removing the restrictions and allowing for the government to then just only enable us to do more of what we already want to do. The power is taken away from the people and is put in the hands of the government. And Vivek Ramaswamy decided to entrench himself on the left in order to have a conversation with communists or people that believe in this way of living. I absolutely never, ever, ever want to live like they live in China, Venezuela, or Russia, Molly. And so Vivek decided to insert himself and have a conversation with these people, and this is what happened.
Of America is the American section of the Revolutionary Communist.
May I take some literature?
You can read it, but it is for sale. That's for free now.
It's for sale.
I know. In a capitalist country.
Capitalism. How much is it?
Depends. So that's all under $5. Paper's $5.
I think we can afford that.
I would say so.
Let's got my wallet somewhere we can get.
You got Venmo, Cash App. You got the link.
I like this. See, the communists have Venmo. They've got all the digital infrastructure. I like that. Well, we can do cash. What's your best book?
Oh, best book? Well, let's see. I don't want to give you one you might use. Here, how about if you want to know what we're about, brother?
That's good. Absolutely. What's this one about?
This is our paper. We write this and we produce it monthly.
How much is this?
Also $5.
All right. We'll give him a second $5. Sorry. Thank you.
Let's work together.
Cool. Thank you. So, let me ask you. Here's my issue. This is one of my issues with Kamala Harris. I want your perspective on it. I think she has two issues. She has not stated her actual policies, and the reason I respect somebody like Bernie Sanders more than I respect Kamala, and I've said this numerous occasions, I'm not saying it just right now, is if you have convictions, at least stand by them. If you believe in single-payer health care, if you believe in an effective national health care system for all, then stand by it. But why adopt those positions 4 years ago only to back off of them today? Right? I could disagree with you, but at least have the position and stick to it. That's sort of what my criticism is. And my suspicion is there might be some counterintuitive alliances between the so-called far left and actually segments of the so-called far right that want to stay out of foreign wars, that want to end crony capitalism and lobbying and government capture, to say that, you know what?
He might be too smart for them, honestly. Honestly. Let me tell you what Vivek is, and we're going to get back into it because I want to play the entire interaction. The problem with Vivek is that Vivek thinks that people or people that are on the left or people that disagree with him are civilized people. Vivek has never been into the hood. That's the problem with Vivek. Honest to God. Vivek has never been into the hood. Vivek thinks that you can negotiate with terrorists. You can't. He's trying to have a logical conversation, not a debate, but a logical conversation with people that think differently from him. And I haven't seen this at all. I just seen that it came up on the algorithm or whatever like that. Nobody actually sent this to me. This was a part of my algorithm. And he's too smart. It's almost like he doesn't understand the street aspect of things, which he can be incredibly useful. Incredibly useful. Obviously, has benefited him greatly. He's become a multi-millionaire as a result of it. But at the same time, I think that Vivek is incredibly green on how to deal with people that don't give a flying F about you. And there is a demographic of people that don't care. And the difference is that you gotta be self-aware enough, or you gotta be aware of your surroundings, not to cast your pearls between swine. So the idea of it is that having a conversation is good, but who you're having a conversation with matters just as much, because similar to the Jay-Z lyric, you argue with fools and people can't tell who is who. It's almost like disrespectful to have a conversation with people that are basically terrorists. You can't negotiate with terrorists. They're not changing their mind. They're not open to what you got to say. He's making too much sense and he's too smart. Half of the stuff that he's saying, is probably going over their head. But let me just see what's going to happen.
There might be ways where you may not agree with 100% of what I say or what Donald Trump says, but you don't have to agree with 100% of what somebody says to think outside the box and vote a little bit differently. What do you think? You said I am here to listen a little bit, so I'd love to hear your guys' perspectives on why you're here.
Look at the guys here who we
why
talking.
You have your own disappointments with the current direction of the...
This is going to be able to represent us. They can't be pressured into representing us because we don't pay their bills, we don't pay Kamala's, Trump's, we don't pay yours, because they all have financial backers. That's why we need a workers' party to take down the two ruling class parties, one that doesn't...
He's not speaking to anything that Vivek said whatsoever. Vivek says, what do you think about Kamala Harris's non-policies and the fact that she stood on this back then, but she won't stand on it now. And so his suspicion was that there's a incentive between the elites to ultimately keep certain things in place in order to benefit a certain demographic of people. That is the summary of what Vivek asked. He gave his suspicions, he asked a question, and the dude completely went off the rails and said, let's do away with the dude. Blah, blah, blah. You're not negotiating with these people.
Have funding from these big businesses and is instead funded by its membership.
Yeah, I mean, you realize the convention here, I mean, I don't need to preach to you then, but I mean, who buys the sweets, right? Talking about populist talk from the floor of the convention, stand up for the workers and break up the very companies that are sponsoring the whole event, right? So there's a bit of a paradox there. But, you know, all I would say is...
A paradox in what exactly?
Of controlled rhetoric, right? You have a lot of corporate interests controlling the way in which they actually assail those very corporate interests, which is kind of interesting. It is. I think we might be saying something similar. It's all a bit of a charade.
Yeah, I would say one thing that is definitely we're not similar on is you were talking about unification of like the far right and the far left. There is no.
Well, I don't know about unification, but there may be some common threads.
Well, we would say this: there is no perfect American communism, American socialism like this. You know, these other little parties popping up. It has to be international. We aren't here for the success of American working class because the only way we can be there for the success of the American working class is the international working class in Canada and in Mexico. If you had some, and now we don't believe in this, but let's say there was some perfect, socialist America, it would immediately get pushed out by China, by Russia, by Europe. So we need an international socialist revolution in order to secure a true victory for the working class.
Woo! Vivek, what are your thoughts on reparations for Black Americans?
So here's my perspective. I was asked about this when I came to the south side of Chicago a year ago, and my position on this has not changed, is I'm against race-based reparations because I think it will create more division,
What about race-based discrimination that occurred in this country for
These people are not trying to hear what he's saying. Before he even finished his answer, they said, well, what about this? What? You can't negotiate with these people.
Let me just clarify one aspect. I think there was a time and place for it in the Reconstruction era. But today, when we actually bring back racial reparations, it actually causes greater discrimination, not more. I think we're seeing a rise in anti-Black and I think other forms of racism in the country. But part of the reason I think we're seeing it is there's no better way to foster racial animus than to take something away from someone based on their skin color.
So don't give Black people justice because it'll make other people upset.
Well, because it's going to create more division and be self-defeating. I think it's actually going to set Black Americans back because it will cause. I mean,
but Black Americans continue to live in that setback.
I want to move out of I want to move out of the middle of this just because I feel like. So let me say this: you're not going to be able to solve. You are not going to be able to solve this problem under capitalism. You're always going to be coming up with these little band-aid issues. That is why the only way to truly get reparations for the indigenous people, for the Black Americans in this country, is a socialist revolution. Is by seizing the means of production and letting that community give themselves reparations. We don't need to be asking for, oh, please, God.
So I'm curious as to what you're doing here. Are you a supporter of the genocide against the Palestinian people?
I am an American who is actually here to listen to the views of people who disagree with me. Now, one of the reasons I'm supporting a candidate in this election.
Of Israel?
I support the United States, and because of that, I support Israel and our relationship with them.
You support a genocide that has killed 40,000 Palestinians in the last 10 months.
So look, I think that the truth is there was an attack that precipitated it.
No, the
and we can't ignore that. We can't ignore that fact.
See all of this? You see all of this? You can't have a civilized conversation with people that don't give a F about what you say. Vivek says, listen, I'm here to listen to people that may disagree with me. It immediately turned hostile.
These kinds of games. I'm an organizer. I'm not one of your.
I'm also pragmatist.
I'm not one of these people.
You're not a party.
I'm not an acolyte of yours.
You're not a partisan.
I'm not an acolyte of yours, and I'm not a hack for you or for the Democrats or for the Republicans or nobody else.
I got you.
I'm asking you that you have no right to be here if you're not in support of the Palestinian people.
Well, I think
and if you're not going to call for an end to a genocide.
You have the right to be here.
If you're not going to call
so do we
for an end to the genocide and an end to the killing and an end to the support of Israel, then you should take off. We don't want you here. You're not welcome here.
Well, the good news is we're America, and so we actually get to all express ourselves peacefully.
You get to express being a racist?
You get to express
being a racist Zionist pig? Is that what you get to express?
I'm pro-American, but I believe in your right.
You cannot, and let y'all know this again. You cannot, in any capacity whatsoever, negotiate with people that don't give a F about you. They don't care. They don't want to hear it. Either shut up and get out of my way or whatever. You cannot fight a terrorist with logic. You can't try to convince them of anything other than it's just pain and suffering. That's all that comes with them people. It's toxicity, pain, and suffering. Ain't no conversations, ain't no civilization. And these people be over into this country. I'm not even sure if they even supposed to be here. We don't even know what the citizenship is with this man that's talking right now.
Right to speak. I believe in your right to speak your mind.
Prices go home.
Now look at where it's going. Look where it's going. He was over there chilling, bought their little propaganda. I would throw that junk in their face. Shut up. Brought their little propaganda here. Here's $5. Here's $10. Let me buy them both. Next thing you know, it went from, hey, let me hear what your views are to races go home, races go home, races go home. It's already, look at it.
Races go home. 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 Races go home.
You see what happens when you let the inmates run the asylum, when you don't put a stop to it immediately? You see what happens? Do you see what happens when you try to negotiate with terrorists? He didn't know. He don't know. The streets, it's a different animal. You just don't even go. You just let them eat themselves.
Races go home. 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 America first. America first. How about that?
Democratic National Convention is a mess, bro. And they following them too. They're not even just letting them walk away peacefully. They following them and antagonizing them. Why are they following them?
Stop being a judge. Where are you going, to hell? Where are you
Look
going?
at the person. Look at the person that's next to him.
Talk to me from that.
Look at these crazy fools. Look at these crazy fools in the street. You gonna sit there and try to negotiate with these people? Look at these people. Are y'all gonna try to sit there and try to negotiate with these people? That's a black person in whiteface. That's a black person in whiteface. Let me give you all my final thoughts before we get up out of here, bro. I got to jump in the shower. I got to take care of some business. Here's my final thoughts, man. This is my final thoughts. And I honestly believe this with my whole heart. We are going to suffer for the decisions that we make today. We are already suffering from the decisions of our forefathers, of the people that came before us. The people that came before us sold us out. During the Clinton administration, they sold off our jobs. They sold off our factories. And he wasn't the only one, right? They gave everything over to foreign investment. They manufactured the housing crisis. Bush 2 was one of the worst presidents in my entire lifetime. I still do not believe, as far as all of these terrorist attacks, they went over into Iraq and they didn't even find a can of Spam over there. They didn't find a can of Spam over there. We have such short memories, and we suffered tremendously when the rent moratorium was up. You know how many evictions, because I pay attention to it, and I got buddies that live in other cities because we're all investors, and so we trade secrets, or we leapfrog off of each other. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon, link is in the description, and we have conversations. Hey, what's going on in your city? What kind of legislation do they have? And is it difficult to be able to evict people? Oh, y'all suffering in California. You need to hurry up and sell that property. Oh man, they got a mansion tax over there. If it's above a certain threshold, so on and so on. So we're all having conversations. Oh, insurance companies is leaving Florida. They leaving California over there too. It's gonna go crazy. This and that, and this and that. And so we're having conversations on what makes the most sense in all of that. And from a financial economic standpoint, what I've seen is people are suffering ridiculous amount of suffering that is happening across the board. But they haven't suffered enough. And do you know why I know that they haven't suffered enough? The reason that I know that they haven't suffered enough is because they're still having the same habits, the same voting, the same mindset in approaching it. They still think that they victims. They won't take their lives into their own hands, and they waiting for the federal government to give them something. And they think that Kamala Harris is going to be any different than what their experience was over the last 3.5 years. And that baffles me. That truly baffles me, because she is a continuation of what you experienced over the last 3.5 years versus what you experienced in 2016 through 2020. So if we have two different sample sizes, why do we care about talking points instead of substantiating whether or not the policy aligned with what we've just experienced? I know what I experienced from 2016 to 2020 because after it, I retired in 2019. The bag was crazy. It was up. I don't want the government participating in what it is that I got going on inside of my household. So why would I want federal legislation to play a role in something that I can control? I can control whether or not I have a child out of wedlock. I don't have to participate in that process. Not only do I have hundreds of forms of different contraception, I can also be celibate or I can have some de-discipline. And if you just so happen to be one of the ones that want to be promiscuous and let it all hang out, guess what? Guess what you can do? You can do that. And you can vote in your state to determine whether or not you want to have these laws that allow for you to want to go inside of it and remove whatever it is that you don't want inside of you again. As crazy as that sounds. But we have Planned Parenthood outside of the Democratic National Convention for free doing what you want to do, but then at the same time, y'all want to say that y'all believers. How? How? Y'all have migrants overrunning your cities. They're taking over apartment buildings in Denver. They running amok and they knocking people in their heads, and they literally are forming gangs in New York, and New York won't even prosecute them. So now it's basically rendered the police officers useless because they catching and releasing. Oakland is practically on the verge of filing for bankruptcy, so much so that the police officers and the police union is saying that they want to completely remove their legislation altogether. Brandon Johnson came in Chicago, and he is a worse version of Lori Lightfoot, who y'all voted in based off of identity politics, gender politics, all of that. And now she's over there trying to expose Tiffany Henyard in Dayton, Illinois. And Chicago don't even own its own streets, and they're operating at a deficit. And so it's a doom loop, and the Magnificent Mile is approaching a 50% vacancy rate in the biggest tourist destination in the Midwest. The highest taxes in the world, as far as in this country, it seemed like in the world, but in this country is in New York and Los Angeles, traditionally blue states. Chicago was a close third behind. There's people that are getting their property taxes raised by up to 86%. So it's effectively, even if you didn't have a mortgage, which most of them do, you still a renter. And you want more federal oversight? They can't even manage the budgets that they have. You want more leaders that are not qualified, that are school teachers that don't understand business. You want more people that was a part of the establishment that has never worked in a private sector in their life but has always been paid by taxpayers that can then tell you what you're supposed to do. You want more fake promises of what they're going to do for you, but all it's going to do is cause more inflation. You can't go to the store now and then be able to fill up your refrigerator for $300. Repossessions are crazy. Credit card debt higher than it's ever been. Evictions out of control. Foreclosures rising more than it was when we first started seeing the onset of what was happening in the housing crisis, because most people can't. And the people that can, they won't, because their interest rates are too low versus what it is that they would have to go into if they was to go and buy a new home. So what you've had is a standstill in the real economy of what's happening on the streets. Because as long as you don't have the circulation of the American dollar, oh, you selling your home, you buying a new one, cash is cheap. Inflation is over the last 3.5 years has been above 20%, all of this stuff. What you have is something that is turning into a monster. It is going to be disastrous. Disastrous. People are getting laid off at an enormous clip. Stellantis, which was Chrysler Dodge, is literally about to be sold over to BYD and the Chinese. They're about to sell Chrysler and Dodge and possibly Ram over to the Chinese and keep Jeep. General Motors has laid off another 1,000 employees. Cisco is downsizing. Microsoft and Google ain't hiring. Bigger gig workers everywhere. And now you got to compete with migrants in order to get a gig job, because every time that I order something, Jesus come over there and say, oh, thank you. What do you think is going to happen? You think it's going to get better? Let me ask you a question. Let's say that you're still standing on this black thing because you ain't never experienced racism in your life, and you ain't never picked a piece of cotton in your life. You barely even want to go to work today. You got a bad attitude, your breath stink, and you're living in your mama's basement. Cool. So let's say, for example, just for the sake of conversation, right? You vote her in. All right. What do you think is going to happen over the next 4 years? Specifically, give me something. I'm paying attention to the chat. What is the expectation? Because I know that the argument a lot of y'all make that can't substantiate her policies say, well, I don't want to vote for him. Okay, cool. Vote for you. What are you expecting if you vote her in office? What do you get in return as a result of it? Go. Go now. What are you expecting? What are you going to get? How does that play out for you? And how is it any different than what you got over the last 3.5 years, and how have you benefited from that? I can tell you what I expect. Want me to tell you what I expect? And it's funny again, because I was saying this. I said, a lot of times people don't even understand that they voting for their own demise. See, I have the ability. I'm America first. I love this country. I want to leave this earth in a better space had I not been here. But here's the key, though. I am in a space in my life, because you see me, right? Yesterday I was in the studio doing a show. Today I am here in Miami, and I flew down here, and I'm going to be flying back with new things. I'm going to get my new Sky Dweller today. I have the ability to buy and do and go anywhere I want in the world for the rest of my life, and my family is going to be taken care of. I'm good. I can pick up and leave. You stuck. You're stuck. You have no opportunities, no other options. You are stuck in a space that you are in right here, right now. You should have a bigger vested interest in what is going on in this country than I even have. You should have a greater interest in what's going to benefit you than even me. Because at any point, I could just go and change location, change clothes. I could do anything I want to do when I want to do it. Regardless of whatever is to come. When I find out what the results are, which I largely think that Trump is going to win in a landslide. When I find out what the results are going to be in November, I can immediately make the adjustments. I could do anything I want. I'm mobile as hell. The same way that I just booked the flight same day yesterday in order to get out here is the same way that I can do anything I want to do. I can make a hit with the touch of a button. And my life don't change. It probably gets better. I probably can profit off of your pain and suffering, because when you start to lose your house, guess who's going to be there in order to pick it up and buy it? I honestly believe, and I'm just enjoying the ride and bringing along with me who they can. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. I honestly believe in my heart that there is going to be more suffering. And I don't even think that y'all deserve Trump. I don't think that y'all deserve. If y'all got in there and he fixed what they did over the last 3.5 years or last 4 years by the time that he get in there, you still wouldn't appreciate his presidency. Not until you suffer. You don't even know what you have until it's gone. And that's true even when it comes to who it is that's in office and your politicians. We didn't even know what the impact was going to be when we got Biden in office. We didn't even know that he was just completely with almost looking like he got an onset of dementia. But you're going to find out. You're going to learn today. And I'm going to be laughing all the way to the bank as we do it. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let me read a couple of more of these super chats, and then I'm going to get y'all up out of here for today. Make sure y'all following me on all social media platforms, including Instagram, X, and TikTok. Because you never know what I'm gonna say on there. We got Stock Club coming up, so that is down and that is in the Patreon. So make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. I'm gonna read these and I'm gonna get up out of here, y'all. Heather M says the plan is working now that everyone is struggling financially. The hard part is convincing them why communism is bad. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. No, we ain't gotta convince nobody. You can't convince them. You just got to let them suffer. Jay Denoir, 89, says, AD, you're spot on. Vivek is too smart for his own good. These guys have the intellect and IQ of roaches. This could have gotten dangerous for him. Well, he learned now. Faith, but he only like 38 years old, so he's still trying to figure it out. Faith Factor in the building. Let me give a round of applause for Faith Factor, because Faith Factor been holding me down all day. The Democrats only communists when it comes to anybody but black people. Shout out to you, Faith. I appreciate you. More Magic is in the building. More Magic says, hi Anton. I just now shared your last video this morning. He is pissed. It's over in Cali. He is the dude you zoomed with, Cali, with 13 doors. He is pissed. Shout out to More Magic. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing the video regardless. With Janice says, not gonna lie, him mentioning total police immunity frightens me, but so does the temperature of America right now. And lies from the other side. I appreciate you, Janice. Thank you for holding me down. And my rich friend, Ash. Shout out to my rich friend, Ash. Americans are following the same pattern as biblical Israel, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not fitting. Romans 1:28. Shout out to my dog, Ash. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to everybody that tuned in all week long. We got after hours tonight. Yes, we will be doing after hours tonight. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, Secret Truth. Secret Truth says, even if Trump fixes what they did, they won't give them credit. They will say it's a carry-up. You can't save all people. Sometimes you just got to let them suffer. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Y'all are the greatest audience on earth. Until next time, share this with your family and friends. Hit a like for the algorithm on your way out the door. And then last but not least, if y'all are bag chasers, make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. And shout out to my good friend Eric Daniels. Says, Anton, great show. No, thank you for tuning in, my friend. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.